Chapter 466. Some people were wary of William's fists, but not everyone. Paul Bane was adept at using a spear, just like how a general liked to use a spear. He could sweep away thousands of enemies from a distance of 3 feet. But William's thunder slash had the characteristics of Een thunder, and he was at a disadvantage. In other words, William would not let the thunder slash hit him twice. Otherwise, the Een thunder characteristics would make him feel good. William's blade was dripping with fresh blood. He sneered and said, "That stab just now was very satisfying. It almost pierced through your heart. Are you going to retreat now?" Paul did not like to talk nonsense during a battle. Epic warriors were experts, but the outcome of a battle between experts would be decided in an instant. Some people liked to talk, but they would wait for the opponent to be distracted before launching a fierce attack. For example, when Meng Lu was fighting against William, it was the same. Paul Bane saw William suddenly glance at the long sword in his hand out of the corner of his eye. He seized the opportunity, his body suddenly exploding, his spear sweeping out, drawing a line of sight in mid-air that distorted the air, the light of thunder and fire bursting forth. William's thunder slash slashed horizontally. The spear collided with the blade. The spear trembled slightly, but the thunder slash did not budge. But Paul twisted his body in mid-air, and his spear drew a circle. Meanwhile, the tip of the spear emitted a strange red and blue light. Buzz! A tangible thunder and fire spear suddenly appeared. It was like a ferocious dragon crossing the river. Its aura was terrifying. William clenched his left fist. He used the Imperial Dragon to slay the dragon. His left hand suddenly enlarged like the hand of a heavenly god. He pressed down on the huge dragon's head and slammed it on the ground. The spear suddenly exploded, but a spear was still a spear. William's method of chasing after a victorious opponent was straightforward. As long as the enemy was not within 2 meters of him, Paul Bane's spear would be more powerful. His spear was like a dragon, and he could sweep away thousands of enemies. His aura was getting stronger and stronger. More importantly, William took a step forward, but he was held back by Paul Bane's spear. Paul Bane's sword energy and thunder echoed in the sky, but Paul Bane did not give William a chance to get close. The audience could see it. The battle between the two of them clearly did not have the same kind of grandeur as before, but it was full of killing intent. Paul thrust his gun straight at him. This was supposed to be the most ordinary spear strike. However, its speed was so fast that no one could avoid it. It was as if the spear had suddenly expanded by a few meters. William wanted to grab the spear with his hands, but the spear drew an arc and drew a line of blood across his chest. But at the same time, he raised the middle finger of his left hand. A bolt of lightning roared out and struck Paul Bane in the chest. The latter thought nothing of it. One of his eyes was blue and the other red. He slammed his left hand on the ground. Bang! In the sky and on the ground. The thunder and fire spears fell like rain. Heaven and earth turned upside down. Countless spear lights rose and fell from the sky. With an earth-shattering might, they charged over swiftly as if they were going to stab their enemies into meat paste. William shouted. His sword light swept out and instantly cut off dozens of spear lights in front of him. As he stepped forward, dozens of light shields appeared around him. But even so, the light shields were quickly pierced by the thousands of spear lights. But in the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Paul Bane. Psychic blast. Bang. Paul, who had slammed his left hand on the ground, felt his head go blank. The sword light slashed at his neck. Swoosh. A line of blood splattered into the sky. William looked at the troublesome guy who had dodged the sword light and kicked him. Bang. Paul Bane, who had been kicked between his legs, was sent flying hundreds of meters away. When he stood up, his face was a little twisted. It was painful. It was very painful. An epic professional's kick had almost crushed his second brother. If he did not have a beginner's elemental body, which increased his defense and reduced the pain, he would not have been able to stand up. But what made Paul Bane uncomfortable was that he had acted very well, but William did not follow up with another attack. Of course, both of them had not activated their domains. But then again, for professionals like them, it was not important to activate their domains. It was about their own abilities. But if the enemy didn't move, Paul had to move, but he couldn't drag it out. There was still a streak of thunder roaming in his body. It was better to take the advantage of exchanging injuries and stab with his spear. It was better than being ambushed by William and causing him to suffer internal injuries. He struck with his spear again. Two streaks of battle energy, fire and thunder, surrounded the spear. They roared and surged forward like a dragon in the sea. William narrowed his eyes. His spear technique did not change, but his spear intent did. His body suddenly retreated, keeping the spear at an inch away from him. He retreated a few hundred meters. He forcibly dissipated the spear. Paul cursed the thief in his heart. The spear tip dragged along the ground, and a series of electric sparks flashed. Both of them fought in close combat again. In less than 3 seconds, Paul's head smoked after being hit by William's thunder attribute again. A bolt of lightning struck his head and exploded with the lightning in his body. Paul spat out blood, but his body did not stiffen. After all, he also had the endowment of thunder. But when he was hit again, his footsteps became unnatural. William seized the opportunity and charged at dawn. Bang! The moment the two collided, Paul felt an indescribable impact spread throughout his body. His sternum seemed to have cracked, and his limbs involuntarily went limp. Then, everyone could only see a long rainbow penetrating the entire arena. His Royal Highness bumped into Paul Bane with his body close to his body. Then, he pressed Paul Bane's head against the boundary at the edge of the ring. Crack! A crack appeared. Paul Bane was like a puddle of mud, and he collapsed to the ground. William was indignant, and he punched. But this puddle of mud was like a loach. He shook his head to avoid the punch, but the thunderous punch penetrated the barrier. Lightning was released outside the arena. Many contestants standing at the front were unlucky. Fortunately, they were all epic professionals, so they were not seriously injured. The referee was embarrassed. The barrier was King pierced through again. It was always William that be starred. But this time he did not attack. Gregory, who was wearing a purple magic robe, was sitting on the spectator stand. He calmly waved his hand, and a new barrier appeared. There was no need to think about it. No one thought that William's punch could penetrate the barrier again. But the next punch, bang, Paul Bane dodged again. The barrier was hit by another punch. Another King crack. This time, everyone was dumbfounded. It was the magical barrier of a grand mage. Even a legendary expert could not penetrate it. But William had created a crack with a punch. Gregory did not take it to heart. He chuckled. This star's fist is quite hard. After he finished speaking, he waved his hand to strengthen the barrier. William and Paul Bane moved to another battleground. When the commander of the Empire's genie army, Duke Olet, saw this scene, he smiled and said, "Rumor has it that he is the hand of the Thunder God." It seems to be true. Since the hand of the Thunder God can penetrate this barrier, why can't it cause such a serious injury when it hits a person? The controller of Gold said in a deep voice, "Fists are not sharp objects. Even if it's the fist of a lord, as long as it doesn't have enough power, it won't be able to harm a person with a strong physique. But this fist has some special characteristics. It seems to have some anti-magic properties." Caesar's father-in-law was stunned. He could not help but say, "Rumor has it, a city in the Frost Empire had its sacred pulse dug through. It seems that the natural god used his hands to dig through it. Is this a special ability of the natural god?" Gregory frowned. He was a grand mage, but there were no gods in the era he was born in. There were no miracles, and there were no records of such things. He shook his head. "I don't know either, but I hope that it's a natural god with thunder abilities. Only then can they have this ability." Indeed, if the natural gods have this ability, the barrier would be useless against them. The commander of the Aulid Imperial Guards continued to ask, "Is William the reincarnation of the Thunder God? Who can say for sure?" The old Grand Mage chuckled and did not say anything else. The two of them were talking about Kung Fu. William and Paul Bane had unleashed their domains. One was a thunder domain, and the other was a domain where thunder and fire intersected. When the three domains overlapped, The space in the arena began to distort. Countless flames rose up, and lightning would strike down from the sky. This battlefield was like purgatory. The two of them stood in the domain between thunder and fire. Almost every second, he would suffer severe damage. If the space domain was about control and restriction, the frost domain was about coldness and deceleration. The thunder and fire domain was about killing. At this moment, William had completely transformed into his thunder body. He was as fast as lightning, and his every move was imbued with the power of thunder. The thunder in the sky complemented him. Every attack of his would cause thunder to strike from the sky and earth. But Paul Bane had also unleashed his thunder and fire body. Half of his body was blue thunder, and the other half was magma-like flames. His eyes emitted flames and lightning at the same time. He was incomparably ferocious. They had fought until this moment. The two of them had used all their trump cards. Even the legendary bigwigs couldn't help but secretly praise the intensity of the battle. After all, excluding the three reincarnations of the main gods, William and Paul Bane almost represented the peak of epic professionals. Even some legendary professionals at this level could not compare to them. But it was just like what William had said. The more attributes one awakened, the harder it was to control and train. It was fine to bully a mediocre professional of the same level. When facing a top-notch professional, if the multi-specialized professional did not kill his opponent quickly, he would be killed sooner or later. In particular, the thunder and fire body looked awesome. He seemed to be the prettiest person in the arena, but he also expended a lot of battle energy. The two of them fought for a full hour. They used their ultimate skills and various battle energy-consuming moves without stopping. William forcefully dragged the battle out until Paul Bane's battle energy was depleted, and he won the battle. However, both of their injuries seemed to be very serious. In fact, their health points were above average. This was mainly because their combat power was similar. After Paul Bane's battle energy was depleted, he realized that William did not continue attacking. He took a deep breath and bowed to William. Then, he left without looking back. There was a ding-dong sound. William glanced at the prompt and smiled. Then, he jumped off the arena. When Caesar and the others surrounded him, they praised each other. Carlo could not help but say, "You've used all your trump cards. How are you going to fight the next battle?" William touched his head and looked up at the sky. "Trump card. My trump card. No one has used it on me." What was his trump card? It was flesh, especially his elemental equipment set. It was of legendary quality. He still had one move that he had not used. He had not even used a peerless skill. Chapter 467. The fifth round. Until now, there were more than 50 professionals who had maintained a winning streak. There were 4 regions in the legendary continent. Those who could reach this stage were considered as true powerhouses. Experts among experts. William looked around. He recognized more than half of the epic professionals. That was because more than 40 of them had become legendary experts and saints in the end. The most important thing was that there were more than 10 reincarnations of gods. He had to remember this. Caesar felt a little guilty. He said, "I'm going to die. It's up to you." Acheler was very confident. He said in a deep voice, "Don't worry. William and I are here. At least both of you can represent me. As long as both of you can obtain the epic title, I'll be better than Peter." Caesar clenched his fists. The heir to the throne had to be compared in all aspects. Only by surpassing Peter in all aspects could he have a greater chance of obtaining the throne. Next, the fifth round began. The first round was against Crown Prince Peter. Even though the Warlock Sage was his teacher, he could not arrange an opponent for him. Every one of the 50 professionals in the arena was stronger than him. Crown Prince Peter wanted to use his money. However, before he could use his money, the professional almost beat him up. After all, no matter how powerful his money was, it was impossible for an epic professional to give up the opportunity to obtain the title. Subsequently, almost every round began with the appearance of a prince from the 3 empires. They were not considered weak since they could reach this stage. but they were still a distance away from the top epic professionals. But anyone with a discerning eye knew. The organizers had allowed them to reach this stage in order to preserve the dignity of the three empires. But the next round was a random draw. 5 consecutive rounds. The princes of the three empires were eliminated. Caesar was no exception, but he lasted the longest. His opponent was the reincarnation of a god. But in the 6th round, William's name was on it. He did not expect to be on stage so soon. When he saw his opponent's name, Caesar, Acheler, Cassidon, and the others were shocked. Clarence of the Frost Empire. This Earth Element domain warrior wasn't just extremely strong. None of the opponents he faced were able to break through his defense. This was the most unbelievable part. Kaiser and Acheloro looked at each other. Both of them knew that Class might be the reincarnation of Hercules. Both of them looked helpless, but they could only pray for William in their hearts. His Royal Highness stepped into the ring. His heart felt cold. He felt that it was better for someone to arrange an opponent for him. No matter how strong the conspirators were, they wouldn't be this strong. His 3 points of luck were simply a scam. Could it be that he was about to lose his epic title? After that, Class, who was tall and strong with explosive muscles all over his body, walked up the ring with steady steps. Every step he took was like a war drum, pounding on William's soul. This was the resonance of the earth. Before anyone knew that Chris was the reincarnation of Hercules, he had a lot of nicknames. The King of Earth, the Land God of War, and the Super Macho Man who doesn't like flying. Yes, the third was a nickname given by the players. The reason why he didn't like flying was that he could borrow infinite power from the earth. As long as he stood on the ground, he would never fall. Let's put it this way. Chris could borrow the power of the earth to ensure that he was undefeatable as long as his feet did not leave the ground. It was difficult for professionals of the same level to shake him. In other words, even if William used the Rangers' long-range kiting skills, he wouldn't be able to break through Class defense. But William's eyes suddenly lit up. Their arena was suspended in the air. In other words, he could only borrow the power of the arena, which was less than 30,000 meters long. But the most important thing was he had a pair of fists with many special effects. William might be able to break through Class defense, which was similar to the earth element. Class glanced at William. He didn't know what William was thinking, but he didn't want to know either. Class was confident that he was undefeatable. Then he said in a deep voice, "Use your fist to hit me. If not, when I attack, you'll have lost." "You're that confident?" The corners of William's mouth twitched. "I'm not confident. It's a fact." Class looked calm. He didn't treat William as an opponent. Even though Moses seemed to have invested a lot in him. Even though William had the arm of the thunder god. Even though he had many external objects. In front of Class, they were nothing. William clenched his fists. Class was too arrogant, especially when he spoke. He looked like he deserved a beating. "All right, you said it. I'll beat you up until you call me daddy." William cursed. He took a step forward, and a sonic boom sounded. He arrived in front of Class. He didn't use any skills. Class didn't move either. He didn't even dodge. He allowed the flashing lightning fist to penetrate his battle energy shield and hit his chest. He didn't move an inch. 13 drops of blood. A look of disbelief flashed in William's eyes. But Class didn't move, but it didn't mean that he wouldn't retaliate. He punched Class. William couldn't dodge. His chest caved in, and his entire body flew back like a cannonball. Class sneered. He felt that William was too weak. He even wanted to have a chat with Moses. William was such a noob and wasn't worth nurturing. But William had thick skin and flesh. He didn't mind reducing his health to a critical state. Then, he would activate his relentless trait. Next, both of them started to fight at close quarters. Or rather, William was being beaten up. Of course, he was also being beaten up. Some people died as they were being beaten. Some people became stronger the more they were beaten up. They could even be beaten up for an entire day. Gradually, Class discovered a problem. The more heavily injured William was, the stronger his combat power and his skin became. He was like the berserkers of the Frost Empire. But so what? So what if his attack power was doubled? So what if his combat power was doubled? William was fighting against this bunch of flashy fellows. Caesar and Akarov felt uncomfortable when they saw William being beaten up. Every time William fell, he would unleash more power and charge forward. Quite a few professionists had the same feeling. This was how a man should be. Their unyielding spirit was the most admirable. In a short span of 3 minutes, William was covered in blood, but he had the endowment of the diamond body. His body was injured, but his bones weren't fractured. His health points continued to drop. 70%, 50%, 30%, 10%. It took 10 minutes. William's various recovery abilities were delayed until they were ineffective, but his health points were maintained at 10%. With the endowment of Relentless, his basic attack power and defense power increased by 50%. Although his health points were less than 30,000, his defense was very high. In addition, with the Heart of Thunder, every attack from the enemy would restore 4% of his health points. It was very difficult for him to die in his current state. Of course, it wasn't safe, but at this moment, the aura on the surface of William's body suddenly soared, and the tyrannical and terrifying aura caused Kras to take a few steps back in fear. Unparalleled holy thunder, all attributes increased by 150%. Attack power, defense power, and movement speed increased by 150%. In the state of unparalleled holy thunder, he was immune to most control skills. The effect lasted for 30 minutes. All attributes were reduced by 50% for 5 hours. But it wasn't over. He used countless thunder crystals to create a thunder elemental armor. It had a super skill. Intermediate elemental body. Within 10 minutes, he would temporarily possess the intermediate thunder elemental body. Skill cooldown, 10 days. But within these 10 minutes, he would possess the intermediate elemental body of a legendary professional. The side effects were not small. For the next 10 hours, he would lose the ability to use his thunder endowment, and he would not be able to use the elemental armor. That was right. When the two super trump cards were used at the same time, his aura seemed to have surpassed the upper limit of the epic level. William's body had transformed into a thunder body. His elemental armor seemed to have disappeared, and there was not a trace of flesh on his body. It was the true thunder body and elemental body. Countless people were stunned. What was that? The aura of a legendary professional. It had suddenly appeared. Not only the legendary professionals, but their eyes also lit up. Even Grigory, the warlock saint, squinted his eyes and looked at William in surprise. Transcending levels. He had witnessed someone using the aura of a transcending level. When Klas saw this, his eyes turned green. He stomped his feet, but he could not absorb any more power. Because this was an arena, not the ground. His innate talent could not be used to its full potential. But William was like the real thunder god. His eyes were blue, and he waved his hand expressionlessly. An electric arc swept across the arena. Boom! Tens of thousands of lightning bolts descended from the sky. It was like doomsday. The arena, which was 30,000 meters long, had turned into a blue domain. If not for the fact that he was a fake legendary, this arena, which was only 30,000 meters in length and width, was not big enough. Klas's body was covered with countless electric arcs. The moment he activated his domain, he was severely injured, and he spat out blood. But at the same time, he activated his Earth domain. He hoped that he could ensure his safety within his domain. However, it was useless. William, who was accompanied by countless lightning bolts, passed through the rising mud walls at an extremely fast speed. The invincible mud walls were like tofu in front of him. He punched out. Bang! This punch was like a magic cannon. When both of them collided, the moment William's fist landed on Klas's body, boundless thunder energy exploded. Klas was instantly smashed into the ground, and only his head was exposed. The surrounding ground looked like a crater. Many people inhaled a breath of cold air. But William did not show any mercy. He punched again and again. His fists hammered at Klas, who was protecting his head. Defense? Sorry. Klas's hands were hammered until his bones were exposed. He had been hammered for a full 30 seconds. The 100-meter thick arena had been pierced through. When Klas received the last punch, his body, He was like a meteorite that smashed through the barrier of the suspended arena and landed heavily on the ground. There were many Imperial guards near the suspended arena. When they saw someone falling from the sky, they were stunned. Of course, Class was not dead. His most powerful state could only be displayed on the ground. However, William stood thousands of meters in the sky. He looked through the hole in the arena at Class, who was absorbing the power of the earth. He had won. What was the point of absorbing more power, you idiot? You had already fallen out of the arena. How could you continue fighting? Chapter 468. Why would William participate in the epic title conference? Defeat Paul Bane and solve the problem of the Beast Castle. Then, he could get an epic title. Up until now, he had completed both missions. When he discovered that his opponent was Akeler in the 6th round, he decisively chose to forfeit. There were many benefits to doing so. Akeler's affinity with William's sword. He was very grateful to William. William did not have the confidence to win. It would be good if he won, but it would be bad if he lost. Now that he had completed both missions, it was best to quit while he was ahead. The professionals in the Caesar camp would think that he was a generous and forthright man. Would an epic-ranked titled professional who had won 5 matches in a row and had never lost a single match be stronger? Or would a professional who had won 5 rounds in a row but lost the 6th round be stronger? It could only be said that everyone had their own opinions, but it would be better if he did not lose. So, not only did the professionals think that William was weak, but they also felt that he knew the big picture. He forfeited to preserve Akeler's trump card. The epic title conference was held for 18 days. In the end, 25 people obtained the epic title. As for the professionals with the most points, it was different from William's previous life. The top 3 were no longer tied for first place. Thunder God Thor and War God Aloth were tied for first place. Akeler was ranked 3rd. As for the reincarnation of the god of strength, Crass, he did not even have an epic title. He was eliminated by William. He was probably still sulking in the ground. Therefore, the ranking of victory points was not very real to those who vaguely knew the identity of the reincarnation of the gods. After the conference ended, William obtained the title of Thunderblade. He decisively left the war-ending empire and returned to the City of Dawn. Because his companion, Lancelot, had found a mission for him. In the City of Dawn, the water of the Rainbow River was crystal clear. Small fish swam and fell off the cliff. No one knew if they were dead or alive. After all, fish without faith. They could not make the leap of faith. The pavilion in the Central Plaza was located on the Rainbow Lake. William and Lancelot stood side by side as they looked at the killing plains in the south. These 2 handsome lads attracted the attention of many young ladies and married women. Of course, their main target was His Royal Highness. After all, there was still a gap between the 2 of them in terms of appearance. William had enough confidence. However, there were no dark creatures in the Massacre Prairie in front of them. However, the appearance of the Darkness Invasion had turned the prairie into a plain. However, as a great wood sorcerer, Sia could not stand the sight of barren plains. She had nothing better to do, so she led a group of water and wood sorcerers to carry out a plan to transform the plains. Once again, this place became a boundless grassland. The scenery was restored to its original state, and it was extremely beautiful. When Lancelot saw the grassland, he recalled the time when he had led his army to assist the City of Dawn. Many memories flashed in his eyes. He suddenly smiled and said, "If I hadn't come, what would have happened to the City of Dawn?" William held his wine glass and took a sip. He turned his head and looked into his eyes. "I was defeated, but I knew you would come. Lancelot didn't ask why you trusted me so much." Just like how he asked William for help, he believed that William would not reject him. "Tell me, what's the matter?" "I was planning to return to the extreme north." William raised his eyebrows. He had not completely subdued the muscular Meng Lu. Fortunately, this filial son's mother was already living in the snow elven capital. Not only did William take out 5 drops of life potion, but he also found a legendary water sorcerer to treat his mother. According to Meng Lu's character, as long as his mother's old illness was cured, he would definitely repay William's kindness. Perhaps when William returned to the extreme north, Meng Lu would have already reached an agreement with Burn Cinder and the others. Follow me to the dark world. Let's go to the dark world. The dark world. These words kept echoing in William's head. He could not help but glance at Lancelot. Lancelot was still staring at him with his big, sparkling eyes. But His Royal Highness seemed to be shocked and quickly refused. No, I won't go. That's the dark world, the lair of the dark creatures. There are endless demons there. Even if two epic professionals like us go in, we won't be able to do anything. If we are really captured, even our souls will be imprisoned. Let's not talk about anything else. Even if you put a knife to my neck, I won't go. William crouched on the ground and shrank his neck. He shook his head frantically. He did not have advanced luck halo. If Lancelot, as the Viscount of Light, wanted to go, he would definitely have a way to escape. William was just a dream darkness, raw stone. Even if he could become a devil, he would still encounter all kinds of misfortune. Lancelot seemed to have known that William would say this, so he lazily sighed. Forget it. I can complete this mission alone. It's just that I don't have a hand of God. It's a pity that there are so many dark, sacred veins. Wait. William stood up, and his eyes flashed with the light of justice. He patted Lancelot's shoulder and said, I've thought about it. Our brotherhood cannot be erased. Even death cannot stop us from living and dying together. But before you die, can you tell me the mission clearly? Humph. The Temple Knight snorted and said in a deep voice, It's not that I can't tell you. The war between the Dark World and the God's World can be traced back to the mythological era. Between the two worlds, there is mutual infiltration. Devils can bewitch humans. However, soul element professionals could also control demons. Some devils don't even need to be controlled. They can reveal a lot of information about the dark world just by offering benefits. William rubbed his palms. He could not help but ask, What do you mean? The Temple of Light has a lot of magic and gang rape. You can say that. To be honest, the Pope has at least this many legendary devil spies. Lancelot mysteriously stretched out his hands. 10. The Pope is really impressive. William inhaled a breath of cold air. Lancelot was indeed a king of gods. He had some tricks up his sleeve. Lancelot seemed to have read William's mind. He shook his head and said, These legendary devils are the precious inheritance of the Temple of Light for tens of thousands of years. They are not spies set up by the Pope. Oh, William's mouth twitched. Lancelot had a look of longing and envy as he said, But the Pope also said that spies are useless. He doesn't know why the previous popes set up so many useless things. He even said that he would be able to kill dozens of Dark Lords just by going down for a spin, which is much more valuable than 10 legendary demons. William sank into deep thought. 3 seconds later, he asked, Then why are you going to the Dark World? Since there are so many legendary spies, can't you get them to do the job? Not me. Both of us, Lancelot corrected him. William did not want to speak, so Lancelot continued, The Pope has chosen you. He said that you have to do this because your hands are very useful. William was speechless. He had no choice but to go. But did he have a relationship with the strongest person in the God's world? Lancelot continued, As for our mission, it is to destroy Beryl's birthday celebration. William's eyes widened. Beryl? The Lord of Darkness of the Dark World, the Lord of Sloth. And he was also a god, the god of sloth. He had not been reincarnated, nor had he been sealed into the heavenly realm. The Lord of Darkness who lived in the dark world had long given up the title of God. Only the Lord of Darkness, who was at the level of the Lord of Darkness, was forced to enter the heavenly realm. There was a ding-dong sound. Prompt. You have received an SSS level mission. Destroy the Lord of Sloth, Beryl's birthday celebration. Beryl's 80,000th birthday. As one of the most powerful lords in the dark world and the master of the 72 devil gods, Beryl will hold a grand birthday celebration every 1,000 years. Beryl's 80,000th birthday celebration is even more important. The 72 devil gods will bring the best gift of the dark world to visit their master. Mission level, SSS, mission objective. The Lord of Sloth, Beryl, has been in the dark world for many years, but he has remained at the level of a god. So far, 20 of the 72 devil gods have reached the same level. Many of them did not want to continue to submit to Beryl, but because they had signed a soul contract, they had to obey the great devil king Beryl. Infiltrate the dark world, destroy the soul contract, and cause a civil war in the dark world. Mission reward: blessing of the Pope of Light. Mission reward: mission experience, 300 million to 1 billion. What the F*** CK? When William saw this mission, he immediately swallowed his saliva. No matter if it was the mission difficulty or the mission reward, it was a difficult decision to make, especially the mission reward, not to mention the unknown question marks and experience. Just the blessing of the Pope of Light was enough to make people drool with envy. But he discovered a problem. There was no time limit for this mission. In other words, Lancelot was waiting for him to accept, and he had to accept. William's mouth twitched. He could only believe that the Pope of Light was not fooling him. Lancelot saw that William's body had accepted the mission honestly, even though he said no. He continued to laugh. The Pope has already deduced some things and made a perfect plan. As long as you don't mess around, we'll be safe. On the day of Beryl's birthday celebration, there will be more than 20 sages. It seems dangerous, but it's also the safest time. Beryl will not have time to pay attention to his hometown. His attention will be on those people. I also have enough information to know the location of the contract. As long as you're fast enough, you can destroy the contract. Even if you're discovered, they'll be in a mess. If Beryl isn't held back, we'll die. William swallowed hard. Playing tricks in front of more than 20 sages was like a cross-dresser dancing in a male prison. Even the prison bars could not stop him. But Lancelot still laughed. Don't worry. Trust me. As long as the contract can be destroyed, I guarantee that there will be more than one Lord of Darkness who will attack Beryl. William muttered in his heart. Could it be that a Lord of Darkness and the Pope of Light had made some dirty deals? Otherwise, why don't I believe you when you make such a solemn vow? Chapter 469. William's Hand of God was required to complete the mission in the dark world. He also had to make many preparations. Otherwise, the two of them would die in the dark world. Hence, they used the teleportation portal to travel a long distance in their consciousness. They hurried to the headquarters of the Temple of Light. This was William's second time here. Both of them walked to the side hall and did not see any outsiders. As they walked, they encountered the guards of the Temple Knights. They arrived at a tall tower inside the Temple of Light. A tall and well-built priest in a white robe was holding a flail and a shield at the entrance. He was waiting for them like a door god. When he saw Lancelot, he casually scanned him with a ray of white light. After confirming Lancelot's identity, he led them in. Magic Research Tower of the Temple of Light. Lancelot pointed at the huge words above. When William saw the words, he could not help but be secretly delighted. This magic tower, which was hundreds of meters tall, was equivalent to a national scientific research institute. There were many cutting-edge experimental products, magic potions, equipment, tools, and so on. This was the most confidential place of every top power. It was equivalent to the multi-functional magic tower of the City of Dawn. It made William feel like he was a 007 agent. He did not know if he could get more things. The two of them followed the priest into the miniature teleportation portal in the tower. When William saw the priest press the -89 button, Lancelot's mouth twitched. He couldn't help but twitch his mouth. Could it be that this magic tower was just a cover, and the real good stuff was in the underground space? What was going on? Could it be that besides the dwarfs, did the rest of them not encounter the Balrog when they dug underground? They did not dig deep enough. As the space flickered, they saw a small tunnel. In front of them was a heavy metal door. The magic lamps on both sides were slightly lit. It gave them the feeling that they had entered an ancient temple. More importantly, there were 4 magical statues on the left and right sides of the door. They were holding swords, shields, and flails. They were usually in standby mode and did not consume any magic. They were just like real statues. But when they sensed a threat or were awakened, they could explode with the combat power of an epic professional. They have a strong foundation. They are comparable to the main temples of the Lord gods. William sighed. Such magical statues were very rare. Among them, the true main shrines left behind from the ancient times were not the kind of side shrines. Basically, there would be such magical statues. This was also the main reason why William did not dare to go there, even though he knew the location of certain temples. At the end of the Second Era, the gnomes had developed this idea even further. He was even able to create saint-level magical statues, which could be said to have the ability to create gods. But because of this, gnomes were also on the verge of extinction in the gods' continent, because creating a god was equivalent to challenging all the gods and saints. After the elves created the first saint-ranked mana statue, more than 20 saint-ranked warriors of various races attacked them. So until now, William had never seen a gnome. Of course, His Royal Highness knew that the goblins had not been completely exterminated. There were still some goblins hiding in underground caves deep in the mountains and forests. They were developing in secret, researching black technology that would destroy the continent in order to take revenge on the world in one sentence. The dwarves would only end up harming their own people if they were courting death. When the goblins were courting death, the sages of various races would sense the danger. They would have no choice but to nip them in the bud. Cleric Flegg walked in front. When he was about to open the door, he suddenly said in a deep voice, "Lancelot knows the rules here. But please don't do something incomprehensible. Otherwise, it will not be good if the magical statues are activated." "What do you mean? I have a big business. Do I need to take things?" William was indignant. Who was he looking down on? The cleric glanced at him, but did not say anything. As the middleman, Lancelot hurriedly explained, "The guards of the magic tower are like this. It's my first time here, so I'll say the ugly things first." His Royal Highness curled his lips. Just as he was about to say something, the metal door opened. At that moment, he felt that his eye of thunder had been blinded. At this moment, Lancelot grabbed his arm and stopped him from rushing forward. Don't ask. When Lancelot first came here, he had the same impulse. He had the impulse to sweep this place clean. What was in front of him? All kinds of legendary enchanter scrolls were placed on the counter. There was not even a magic barrier. Legendary elemental equipment, magical equipment, rune equipment, legendary magical metals, dragon crystals, and legendary magical crystals. Anyway, these things were presented in front of him as if they were free. There were even some super equipment that he had never seen or heard of before. Although most of them were experimental products and not a complete set, their quality was terrifyingly high. Moreover, legendary holy water was not uncommon. Even an epic dark creature would not be able to withstand a basin of holy water splashed on its face. But have you ever seen a whole pool of legendary grade holy water? In particular, there's a large pile of equipment in this pool of holy water. More importantly, the 89th underground floor was very spacious. It was like an alternate dimension. If possible, every underground floor was an alternate dimension. It was not the so-called underground space. Gosh, don't stop me. I'm just going to touch it. William swallowed his saliva. It was too damn rich. He could not imagine that the research tower of the human empires was 100 times richer than this place. But that was not the case. Ever since the Supreme Pontiff of Light had reached a new level, the wealth of the Temple of Light had skyrocketed. Actually, according to logic, with the current strength of the Supreme Pontiff of Light, even human empires would have to pay tribute to the Temple of Light. It could not be helped. It was too powerful. The combat power of a Lord God was so powerful that it made people feel hopeless. The humans were the masters of the Third Era. There were more than 100 sages, but when they stood together, they could not even withstand a slap from the Supreme Pontiff of Light. But the Supreme Pontiff of Light was also a human, and he represented the last great fortune of the humans, because the day he reached a higher level would be the official arrival of the Fourth Era. Lancelot ignored William. He grabbed William's arm and dragged him away as if he was dragging a dead dog. William's gaze became more and more hopeless, until the two of them entered a secret room. He took a deep breath and straightened his body. Not only were there many treasures in front of him, but there were also two legendary professionals. He could not be too presumptuous here. However, not only were these two fellows not of the light attribute, they were of the dark attribute. One of them was a dark element church templar, while the other was a dark element priest. The asterisk gamin, I knew it. The corners of William's mouth twitched. Indeed, the Palace of Darkness had secretly become a part of the Temple of Light. In the past, both parties had not completely integrated. But after the Supreme Pontiff of Light had reached a new level, the Palace of Darkness had no choice but to integrate. But outsiders did not know. Or rather, even if someone knew, they did not dare to tell outsiders. These two fellows didn't even bother to hide their equipment in front of William, because they knew that the Lord of the City of Dawn was a smart person. Even if he had seen through everything, he would not dare to reveal it. One of the Church Templar carefully placed two black rune marks into the bodies of William and Lancelot. The dark element priest took out 2 drops of black blood and pressed them between the eyebrows of the two fellows. Then he continuously chanted incantations. Then a chime sounded. William immediately summoned the elemental armor in his body. He discovered that the armor had turned into a dark color. A message appeared on his attribute panel. Prompt: you have been placed with the darkness mark by the Lord of Darkness. Prompt: you have received the blessing of darkness. Mark of darkness. This mark will convert your talents and talent attributes into darkness attributes. Darkness transformation. Your equipment has been baptized by the blood of darkness. From now on, your equipment attributes will be transformed into darkness attributes. William's eyes lit up. He had the dream darkness raw stone, so he could become a devil. Even his attributes would become darkness attributes. But this was not a fundamental change. A saint-level existence might very well discover something wrong with him. But this was the mark of the Lord of Darkness. Who knew where they had obtained the mark of the Lord of Darkness? Perhaps it was the Supreme Pontiff of Light who had obtained it. As long as another Lord of Darkness did not perform a negative distance inspection, there would definitely be no problem. But William was suddenly stunned. There seemed to be no time limit for the darkness mark and the darkness transformation. The Church Templar seemed to understand their doubts. He said, in order to complete the mission, there must be no loopholes in your identities. When you return, the Supreme Pontiff will personally help you remove the darkness mark. Oh yes, William, you should have the Dream Darkness Raw Stone, right? William did not have any doubts. In this magical world, as long as one did not deliberately hide certain things, it was very easy for sages and existences that surpass sages to deduce the treasures that one possessed based on some of one's experiences. He obediently handed the stone over. The two of them simultaneously blessed the Dream Darkness Raw Stone and returned it to William. William glanced at the stone. There was no change in its appearance, but it seemed to be purer, and the transformation effect was better. After that, the two of them could not leave, because the Church Templar and the Darkness Priest had to train them so that they could understand the dark world and the habits of devils. In short, this mission was a very big plan. If they succeeded, not to mention that it would delay the darkness invasion. But at least the Lords of Darkness would not be able to do much to invade the God's continent. The Supreme Pontiff of Light was very powerful. He was so powerful that all the Lords of Darkness combined were not a match for him. But so what? The Lords of Darkness did not intend to fight with the Supreme Pontiff of Light. If the Supreme Pontiff dared to go to the Dark World to kill the Lords of Darkness, they would join forces and launch various invasions. They might even personally come to the God's world to destroy. After all, the Lords of the Dark World were not fewer than the sages of the God's continent. In a sentence, you killed my experts. I'm going to slaughter your clansmen. Let's see who can kill faster. So even though the Supreme Pontiff of Light was invincible, if he still wanted to uphold justice and light, he would not dare to break the rules. But fortunately, he could set the rules. He could let the Lords of Darkness and the sages play chess within the rules that he had set. Chapter 470. William and Lancelot were trained for 7 days in the Temple of Light before they left. The Space Enchanter opened the door and followed them to the vicinity of Moonlight Island. William pondered for a while. On the way back, the Space Enchanter had to clean up the traces of space. He wondered how much the Temple of Light had invested in this mission. This made him a little more cautious, and he didn't dare to be too reckless. Otherwise, if he really failed the mission, the Light Pope would find him when he rescued Lancelot, and he might even be skinned alive. Meanwhile, the Church Templar who had been teaching them followed them. After a few days of interaction, William also knew his name, Daniel. When they neared Moonlight Island, he tore off his skin and transformed into a Hell Knight. It was the upgraded version of a Dark Knight. It was not easy to create a Hell Knight. Usually, a Hell Knight could only be born in a battlefield where a legendary professional had died. After they were born, there was a small chance that they would retain their human memories. Normally, they were more like newborns, but their combat power, battle awareness, and battle instincts were extremely exaggerated. The Hell Knight that was resurrected by a legendary professional would have the combat power of an epic. Regardless of whether it was the Dark World or the battlefields of the Gods' continent, they could be born. Because of the murderous death battlefields, the dark aura was too dense and the death aura was too heavy. But after the wars in the Gods' continent ended, a large number of priests would use holy light to solve the remaining problems and prevent the appearance of dark creatures. But in the Dark World, there were no such rules. As for where this Hell Knight came from, it was unknown. If there were no accidents, he should be a legendary warrior who had died in the battlefields of the Gods' continent. After he was born, the Palace of Darkness took him in. Perhaps he still had the memories of being a human. Daniel's body was burning with black flames. He rode on his nightmare warhorse, which could easily reach the speed of sound. He brought William, who had transformed into a devil, to Moonlight Island. This used to be the ancestral land of the Moonlight Elves. The scenery was beautiful, but now, the fairyland-like Moonlight Forest had disappeared. Only countless withered trees and black fog were left. There were also hundreds of thousands of Dark Knights, Death Knights, Headless Knights, and even Hell Knights. It cannot be helped. The Moonlight Elves had left millions of corpses on the battlefield, ranging from beginner to legendary. In addition, the elves' bloodline was too high. Most of them were professionals and would not turn into skeleton soldiers. After they transformed into various kinds of knights, they were natural warriors of slaughter. Therefore, it didn't matter if they won the war with the dark creatures, but if they lost, it would bring more dark creatures to them. Daniel was a Hell Knight, while Lancelot and William were in the form of devils. No one dared to stop him. They set off a series of sonic booms in the sky until they arrived at Kronos' lair. Only then did they descend from the sky and slowly entered the city under the watch of two devils. This used to be the capital of the Moonlight Elves. Now, it was the city of death and one of the outposts of the next darkness invasion. The supreme ruler here was Cronus. There were also the 18 demon kings under him. Among them were 13 demons, 2 legendary elven degenerates, 2 Hell Knights, and 1 necromancer. In this pitch-black city, there were many demons on the streets. There were succubi, berserk demons, and 6-armed snake demons. It was as if they had entered a world of darkness. What's more, he even saw some Moonlight Elves and human adventurers who had been captured. They had been treated as slaves, pets, and even food reserves. Fortunately, Prince William was used to life and death. Even if something cruel happened in front of him, he would turn a blind eye. Although Lancelot was a temple knight, he would not delay the completion of an important mission because of some trivial matters. The 3 of them looked straight ahead and walked to the deepest part of the City of Death. It was the teleportation portal that connected the God's world and the Dark World. There were 2 epic devils guarding the portal. When they arrived at Daniel, they immediately bowed and said, "Please wait a moment, my lord. It's not the time to open the portal." Of course, if my lord has the token of the king. Daniel calmly took out the token. One of the devils nodded and asked, "May I know why my lord has returned?" "To participate in the birthday celebration of King Belphegor." "Welcome back, my lord." The eyes of the 2 devils lit up. They immediately knelt on one knee and quickly opened the teleportation portal. Belphegor. He was one of the 7 kings of the Dark World. It was not because he was the most powerful. It was because he had 20 monarchs as his subordinates. It seemed that he would have to spend a lot of money to attend the birthday celebration. but many legendary devils did not even have the opportunity to attend. Therefore, the two epic demons naturally had to be on good terms with a Hell Knight like Daniel, who had a bright future. When Daniel saw the teleportation portal open, he nodded at the two devils. Then, he led William and Lancelot into the teleportation portal and entered the dark world. Just as the three of them entered the teleportation portal, in the largest palace of the Elven Palace, Cronus sat on a throne made of countless elven bones. His eyes suddenly lit up. He looked deeply at the teleportation hall. A few seconds later, he slowly closed his eyes and sank into his own fantasy world. As for the token, one day, the Supreme Pontiff of Light suddenly came to his house and grabbed his neck to snatch it away. As for what would happen with the token, it had nothing to do with him. There was no sun in the dark red sky. There was only a blood moon hanging high in the sky. Magma could be seen flowing slowly everywhere. Looking from the sky, the magma was like a giant fiery red net, forcefully imprinting its mark on the ground. William sniffled. The air was filled with the smell of sulfur and impurities that were blown up after being burned. The air quality was very poor. As for the strong winds, they were often accompanied by countless hot dust, which was enough to scald ordinary professionals. This was the scene that they saw when they walked out of the teleportation portal. It was Lancelot's first time coming here. When he saw this scene, he was dumbfounded. After all, no matter how many pictures and water mirrors he had added, it was not as exciting as experiencing it personally. William was not stunned. After all, he had been here before. Although it was not many times, he was knowledgeable. There was another name for the dark world. That was hell. Obviously, hell was not cold. In fact, it was very hot. It was so hot that the usual temperature was as high as 80 degrees Celsius. In some special places, the temperature could even be so hot that flames could be ignited. Fortunately, the dry hell had been burned over and over again. Now, there was nothing left to burn. In the dark world, which had been burning for countless years, the air was filled with impurities that could scald the respiratory tract. Ordinary people could not survive for more than 3 minutes in this place. It's still the same, eternal and unchanging. William narrowed his eyes. He was very powerful. As long as he did not reveal his identity, he could live in the dark world for a lifetime. When he came to the dark world, he was not alone. In the later stages of the game, the Temple of Light launched an offensive counterattack. The scale of that war was too large. It was a war that involved the fusion of the gods' continents. There were hundreds of sages who participated in the war. Not only were there hundreds of millions of professionals, but there were also tens of millions of players. Daniel waited for a few seconds. When the two of them came to their senses, he led them to walk on the hot ground. He pointed at the pitch-black mountain that was spewing flames. He transmitted his voice, "Our destination." William and Lancelot gulped. What mountain was that? It was too high. It was too big. It seemed to connect heaven and earth. The crater of the volcano was surrounded by countless dark clouds. Even from far away, they could see the lava falling from the dark clouds like meteorites, creating huge craters on the ground. Lancelot could not help but say, "We're at least 1,000 kilometers away from that mountain. About 1,300 kilometers. That's our destination, the Mountain of Destruction. The city of Sloth of Monarch Belphegor is built there," Daniel said. He led them away from the small city that was filled with devils and dark creatures. This small city was built according to the space crack. Although it was a small city, there were only tens of thousands of devils in the city. The strongest was only an epic devil, but the surrounding dark creatures were endless. It could be said that, as long as there was a space crack that connected the gods' continents, there would be countless dark creatures waiting behind it, waiting for the day to invade the gods' world. The three of them did not use the teleportation portal. In other words, unless it was during a war, the Devil Lord of the Dark World would not give other devils a chance to run around. It was to prevent his subordinates from escaping, so the teleportation portal was closed. They could only fly in the sky. Fortunately, the three of them were not slow. They flew at supersonic speed, so it did not take long for them to reach the Mountain of Destruction. They flew at an altitude of about 8,000 meters. William's gaze was fixed on his feet. He felt that the dark world had a different kind of charm. It was a charm that was full of power, because every living creature with flesh and blood had to have a strong enough physique. Otherwise, they would die at birth. But the living environment was too harsh. The former devil race and the current devils all had strong physiques. Lancelot suddenly said to him, "Look over there." His Royal Highness swept his gaze over and noticed that one or two huge palms had suddenly extended out of a lake-like magma pool. The giant dark red palm pulled outwards. Rumble. A flame demon that was nearly 1,000 meters tall slowly crawled out. As he plunged his hand into the magma, he pulled out a red longsword that was hundreds of meters long. The roar shook the sky. A sound wave that was visible to the naked eye spread in all directions. This was a legendary Balrog. He also saw the three flying in the sky. He suddenly waved his sword. Pom, 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 pom. A flaming longsword that was thousands of meters long slashed with explosive sounds. The sword energy seemed to be able to split the sky. It was majestic, but Daniel's pitch-black eyes lit up. He raised his hand and transformed it into a giant hand that was thousands of meters long. He grabbed at the sword energy. Bang! Shockwaves surged. The battle energy of both sides collided. The space became distorted. But Daniel did not stop his attack. He rode on the Nightmare Warhorse and transformed into a ray of black light that crashed into the flame demon. Bang! It was like a sniper rifle bullet hitting the body of a rhinoceros. A huge wound appeared on the chest of the flame demon. Burning flames and fresh blood flowed out. The flame demon's body was knocked down by the ray of black light. But even so, Daniel did not hold back. He continued to attack the flame demon. When the flame demon was on the verge of death and could not even lift his sword, Daniel continued to fly with William and Lancelot without looking back. Lancelot gulped. William's gaze was a little dazed. This guy was very strong. They were both legendary, but the flame demon could not even withstand 10 seconds. Gosh, even if the flame demon was huge, his health points and defense points were very high. Moreover, the flame demon could shrink. It was unbelievable. William even started to suspect that the flame demon was a super powerful person before his death. But Daniel had no intention of praising the flame demon. He just said, in the dark world, the weak are not allowed to fly above the strong, unless you run fast enough. If you want to fly, you'd better pay attention to the fact that there are no existences stronger than you. And he is a flame demon who has just become a legendary. He is not strong enough. William and Lancelot looked at each other. They had a bad feeling. Lancelot could not help but ask, "Aren't you going to leave? If the Lords of Darkness fight, the chances of you surviving will be very low." William also said, "Yes, it's useless to stay." Daniel shook his head. "When you complete the mission, Burial will definitely be entangled." But he is a narrow-minded guy. Even if 20 Lords of Darkness attack him at the same time, he will not let go of the person who broke the contract. He will try to capture you and find out who is secretly plotting against him. So when the time comes, there will definitely be legends attacking you. I have to stay, even if I can only buy a few seconds for you." He saw their worried gazes and suddenly smiled. "As you can see, I'm not weak. Perhaps I can survive even if several legends attack me." William and Lancelot were silent. A legendary who was so strong that it made people's hair stand on end. Just because he wanted to fight for a chance to survive, he had to sacrifice himself. Even if he had died once, but he had to die a second time. "Do you still have human memories?" William could not help but ask. Daniel grinned. After a while, he said, "Yes, I was like you in my previous life. I was also a half-elf. My father was an elf. He was handsome and dashing. My mother was a human, beautiful and kind. They were both powerful professionals and loved each other very much. I also had a very happy family. But in the 1,000-year battle between their love and the darkness invasion, they died on the same battlefield. And 100 years later, I also died on that battlefield. That day, I killed 13 legendary devils with my sword. But I lived again. I became a Hell Knight with memories. It's been too long. I hid in the darkness and walked between light and darkness. I'm tired, and I don't want to live anymore. I miss them." As soon as Daniel finished speaking, his figure exploded. Only a distorted space was left in the sky. Chapter 471. Time passed slowly. In the dark red night sky, more and more figures appeared. There were devils, hell knights, skeleton dragons, and liches. All of them released their auras to let others know how powerful they were. Daniel did the same. His aura was like a sharp knife that seemed to be able to cut through the sky. This overwhelming aura was enough for him to arrogantly pass by with William. No one dared to stop him, because there was no such thing as pretending to be weak in hell. The weak had to give way, kneel, and surrender. If one did not want to do so, then one had to show one's true strength so that others would not dare to underestimate or provoke one. This was the hard truth. Otherwise, countless troubles would come to one's door, and then one would have to solve them. After seeing Daniel, some of the legendary professionals could not help but exclaim, "Hell Knight, Blade of Massacre, Daniel. It's him? It's been a few hundred years. I thought he was dead. I didn't expect him to still be alive. He actually wants to participate in Burial's birthday celebration. Is he looking for a way out for the two devils behind him? It doesn't make sense. Did this fellow who belongs to the chaotic evil camp change his temperament?" Many people had not heard of Daniel's deeds, but many legendary dark creatures that had lived for thousands of years often knew of the massacre that Daniel had caused when he awakened on the battlefield. 1,800 years ago, this Hell Knight awakened on an ancient battlefield and became a legendary professional. But the newly born Hell Knight's combat power was more or less weak. Otherwise, he was not very smart. Therefore, many demon overlords charged over in an attempt to control it. However, unlike the legendary demon lords who fought amongst themselves, this Hell Knight, who had been reborn from the flames of war, killed 6 legendary devil lords by himself. His combat power and combat awareness were extremely shocking. This situation even attracted the attention of the Lord of Darkness. Fortunately, even if a legendary professional did not seek refuge with a Lord of Darkness, the lords could not force him, unless the legendary professional was so foolish that people could not help but deceive him. And ever since then, this Hell Knight, named Daniel, wandered on the battlefield with legendary professions. He killed countless enemies. He killed both sides. He did not help anyone. But there was one thing that was very interesting. This guy was going to freeload for damage. More often than not, he would retaliate only when others made the first move. Once he retaliated, the other legend-ranked demons would basically be destroyed as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Until now, he had never been defeated. That was all. In the span of a few hundred years, he had killed more than 30 legendary powerhouses. But since then, there had been a rumor in the Dark World, which was that when there was a legendary battle, one should never attack a passing Hell Knight. This guy was most likely Daniel, the legendary slaughtering blade. A legendary killing a legendary? Does this count as internal consumption? Actually, it didn't count. This was because many places were chaotic and evil. Ever since Daniel was born, he had displayed a chaotic and evil state. As long as he did not take the initiative to provoke the Lord of Darkness, these big shots could not do anything to him. Of course, it was also because there was another Hell Knight, the Lord of Darkness, who favored him greatly. This was one of the key reasons why he had not fallen yet. After all, knights like them who had been revived on the battlefield were born killing machines. They could only obtain strength on the battlefield. Therefore, Daniel's name was also extremely famous in the Dark World. He was considered the seed most likely to step into the Lord of Darkness. However, he suddenly disappeared hundreds of years ago, making people think he was dead. The volcano of extinction was 78,000 meters high, and the crater towered into the clouds. The location where the city of Sloth was built was the only place that would not be splashed by magma. However, the boiling temperature and the floating objects everywhere were enough to suffocate ordinary professionals to death. In addition to the local creatures, high-level professionals from the gods' continent needed certain tools to survive for a long time. This giant city, with the great demon king Burial at the center, was black, magnificent, and had a vast aura. There were tens of millions of dark creatures living in it. One of the key points was any territory ruled by the Lord of Darkness was basically lawful evil. Most of them kept their promises and obeyed orders. However, they treated the freedom and rights of others as nothing. They would find fun in a limited order. Most of them had been enslaved, abused, and killed for fun. As for Daniel, he appeared to be in the chaotic evil camp, but he was not an expert at the Lord level. After coming here, he could only follow the situation of bullying the weak and fearing the strong to abide by the order. At this moment, the city of Sloth had obviously fallen into a carnival, because the dark creatures living here knew that the master of the city was about to celebrate his 70,000th birthday. The streets were filled with the sounds of revelry, and various dark creatures could be seen everywhere. After William and Lancelot followed Daniel into the city, they were dazzled, especially the succubi who were dancing seductively on the streets. They were really eye-catching. "Where are we going now?" Lancelot transmitted his voice. He was not used to the environment here. He wanted to kill all these guys, but he could only bear with the killing intent in his heart. "Go to the guest house of Burial's palace. I'm a legendary, so I'll receive the proper treatment," Daniel said in a deep voice. He had accepted Burial's invitation before, but he had never come. This time, he was going to attend Burial's birthday celebration. No one would think that his status was not qualified. William and Lancelot nodded. "You're the boss now, so you decide what to do." The three of them walked for a while, and Lancelot heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the streets of the Dark World were not full of experts. According to their inquiries, there were only about 30 legendary professionals and no more than 200 epic professionals in the city, not to mention the big shots from outside. However, if all of Burial's territories were included, including the legendary professionals who helped him guard his territory and the territories occupied by his 72 gods and devils, only then could he be considered one of the 7 kings of the Dark World. What kind of power was this? Then he might as well make a deduction. Did this mean that each of the 7 kings of Hell had nearly 20 sage-level allies or subordinates? Hundreds of legendary people, thousands of epic people. The number of dark creatures was endless. It could be said that the power of each of the 7 kings of Hell was equivalent to 7 or 8% of the combat power of a continent in the God's world. But if the other kings of Hell were included, there would be at least 100 of them. After Lancelot deduced this news, his mood, which had just calmed down, tensed up again. He had never thought that the Dark World would have such a huge power. But after knowing this news, he was even more determined to break the contract. Just like what William had said, little Lon Lon was never afraid. She was very determined. The three of them soon arrived at Burial's palace. When someone found out that Daniel was there, an epic succubus personally came out to entertain them. It was a pity that Daniel was like a normal person. No matter how attractive the succubus figure was, no matter how coquettish her clothes were, she did not attract his attention. He even coldly rejected the succubus' evil request for negative distance contact. The succubus with an explosive figure sighed and turned her attention to William and Lancelot. Both of them naturally chose to reject her. One of them was truly unmoved. The other was unable to move. So her gaze was unusually firm. It seemed that they had been raised by Daniel since they were young and had the same personality. "Well, this is your residence. Master will not see guests now, but there are many devil lords holding banquets." The succubus was a little surprised. Her figure was not bad, and she was strong. But before she finished speaking, Daniel interrupted. "Enough. I'm just here to attend Burial's birthday. I don't want to see other guys." "Understood." The succubus nodded. She did not dare to provoke this big boss who had killed more than 30 legendary experts. So she dragged her perky buttocks and slowly left. Then Daniel assigned William and Lancelot a room and transmitted a message. "The more you speak, the more mistakes you will make. I've trained you for 7 days, but this does not mean that you will be completely accustomed to the life of a devil. Moreover, the banquets held by legendary devils are mostly filled with intelligent creatures on the God's continent. You won't be able to eat them." William and Lancelot looked at each other. "Understood. Shall we stay here for the next 3 days?" "Yes, With their understanding of me, they only know that I'm a battle maniac. In fact, not only do I want to kill more legendary devils, but I also want them to be afraid of talking to me to prevent their problems from being exposed. So, as long as we stay here quietly, we won't attract too much attention. Okay, I'm going to rest. I'll maintain my best state. When we attend the banquet, you will act independently according to the route. When you destroy that thing, I will help you stop everything. Daniel said in a deep voice and was about to walk back to his room. Lancelot could not help but ask, I heard those legendary devils talking about you. They said that you have the highest chance of becoming a sage. Why did the Pope agree to let you escort us? I know that we are considered geniuses, but our chances of becoming a sage are even lower than yours. Daniel turned his head and revealed a rare smile. I have an inner demon. I can't become a sage as a Hell Knight, the Lord of Darkness. Otherwise, I would have reached that realm in the past thousands of years. So, the future should be yours. Next, he transmitted a message again. Lancelot, you are the son of light, the embodiment of light and justice. Your future is limitless. I have no regrets dying for you. I believe that the Pope of Light will not be wrong about you. I also believe that you will be the hope to defeat the darkness. As for William, you seem to be willing to do anything to become stronger. Everything is self-centered, and you can abandon everything that can be abandoned. But your subconscious habits will make the lives of the commoners in your territory better, and the people around you will become stronger. I know that you're a very kind person. At least when you have the ability to protect yourself, you'll be very friendly. And your so-called unscrupulous means are just to cover up the feelings and kindness deep in your heart. Then, for the sake of two people who are also kind and righteous, it seems that my death is worth it. Daniel turned and left. He did not say anything else, but his heart was already burning with the flames of battle intent. This fire of anger, he had suppressed it for hundreds of years. He had endured enough. He did not want to draw a map of the dark world anymore. He also did not want to obtain various kinds of information. He could not wait for the counterattack of the gods' continent. Right now, he just wanted to fight without any restraint. He dared to say, 3 days later, he would drag at least 10 legendary devils to the grave with him. Because his name was Daniel Morninglight. He was the child of the Second Era Human Empire and the Elven Empire. His entire family had died on the same battlefield. He carried the blood feud of tens of millions of his people. He wanted to ask, would the Lord of Darkness bleed? If so, his sword. Very soon. Chapter 472. 3 days passed quickly. After all, hell was very dry, and there was nothing to drink. William and Lancelot only walked out of the palace once to familiarize themselves with the escape route. After discovering that there were no major problems, the two of them sat in a daze in the Devil's Palace. They did not take out the human food and did not dare to drink water. Fortunately, after becoming epic professionals, water was no longer a necessity. It was enough as long as there was magic. No matter what the magic attribute was, it could satisfy their survival needs. As for the food sent by the palace servants, they poured all of it into the space ring and ate it all. But they did not know that this method would make the devils in the kitchen think that they were foodies. But before coming to this strange world, the 7 days of training had completely engraved caution and cautiousness in the depths of their souls. And as the third day arrived, the birthday celebration of Devil King Burial was about to begin. Waves of suffocating, tyrannical auras came from afar, pressuring the many professionals in the palace to the point that they couldn't breathe. That was the signal of the Lords of Darkness that they were close. Not long after, streams of light streaked across the red night sky. The 72 gods and devils arrived at the same time. Among them, the top 20 Lords of Darkness all exuded a terrifying aura. As for the other gods and devils, although they were all at the legendary level, their strength was still not to be underestimated. They seemed to be here to send congratulatory gifts, but in fact, they were also announcing their sovereignty and majesty. The main reason was that they did not want others to look down on them because of the contract. However, after the majestic figure appeared, all the guests became extremely silent. Even the 20 people, except for the Lords of Darkness, all had to kneel on one knee to welcome the newcomer, because he was Devil King Burial, one of the 7 lords of hell, the god of sloth. This was a very handsome male devil with a trace of laziness on his face. His devil's wings did not appear, and he looked more like a human with dark red skin. But his pitch-black eyes proved that he was definitely not a human. Burial, who was wearing a lavender robe, glanced at the group of people in the territory indifferently. Basically, as long as they became legendary professionals, they would not be too obedient, and they all had their own ideas. As for the 20 strongest Dark Lords under him, they had long had the intention to rebel. If he hadn't signed a contract with them tens of thousands of years ago, he would have overthrown his own rule. Now, he was a little regretful. This contract was not strictly signed, and he had no way to control their minds. Damn it, I was still too young back then. There were thousands of people in the banquet hall. The professions with the lowest realm were all legends. The 20 lords of darkness bowed to him. 1,000 legends had to kneel before him. The main reason why he wasn't willing to tear up the contract was because of the power that made the male animal's blood boil, even if this group of people in front of him wanted to force him to abdicate. Get up. Let me see if you've all brought gifts. Under the service of a legendary succubus, Burial sat on his throne and waved his hand indifferently. Yes. The 1,000 people present responded in unison. Burial noticed that their expressions were not very happy. He suddenly laughed and angrily scolded. Why are you so serious? Today is my 70,000th birthday. Be happy. The other dark creatures had no choice but to grin and force a smile on their faces. Then, they lined up and gave their gifts to the disgusting guy in front of them. The atmosphere of the banquet was very strange, but it was actually normal. Although the other 6 Dark Lords were also very powerful, they had never had a contract to bind the other Dark Lords. The Dark Lords relied on their strength and used their fists to reach a consensus. They were not like Burial, who only played tricks. Meanwhile, William and Lancelot also took action. They first avoided all the statues that were visible to the naked eye. These stone statues were actually surveillance devices with warning properties. To ordinary professionals, they were monsters that would transform into devils. William and Lancelot could easily kill them, but it would trigger the alarm. Therefore, they could only start digging in their own houses. Lancelot took a deep breath. He felt a little excited. He was thinking about what to say to motivate them, but he discovered that William had already dug a hole that was tens of meters deep. He even climbed out and pulled off a few leg hairs. Let's go. Why are you in a daze at such a crucial moment? Oh, gosh, his hand speed is so fast. Lancelot scratched his thighs. A few leg hairs had been pulled off, but he was even more amazed by William's hand speed. It had only been a few seconds, and he had dug such a deep hole. Nonsense. Now the attention of the group of bosses is on guard against each other. If we don't dig now, we might be discovered later. William twitched his lips. He used his mental strength to link with Lancelot so that he could pay attention to whether there were any mistakes in the tunnel that he had dug. Lancelot looked at the map and found that there were no mistakes in the tunnel that William had dug. It was simply perfect. It was so skillful that it made one's heart ache. Because in these 7 days of special training, 3 of them were taught how to dig tunnels in the South Palace of Pansmani. Lancelot could not imagine how hard William had worked to have such a deep memory. That was right. The South Palace of Pansmani was the palace of Devil King Burial. It was built next to the volcano of extinction, and the underground was filled with magma. Therefore, the 2 of them could not dig too deep. They were not afraid of being scalded by the magma, but they were afraid that touching the magma would cause a change in the air pressure, which would alarm the boss above. The tunnel was dug from the guest house of the palace all the way to the building of Burial's bedroom. The distance between the 2 was a total of 30,000 meters. They could not dig in a straight line because they wanted to avoid the magma that might appear. The depth had to be maintained below 50 meters, because this was the only depth. It would not be easily sensed by the sages. Fortunately, the 2 of them did not need to enter the building of Burial's bedroom, because the location of the contract was not in his space ring, nor in his bedroom, nor in an alternate dimension. It was in the magma underground of the bedroom. Burial's defensive measures were very good. But it was just as William had said. In a magical world, even the deepest secrets would be unearthed by others. As the two of them dug, they used their mental strength to mutter, "This guy seems to be a little unpopular. Maybe this map was made by a legendary professional beside him. Do you think it's a succubus lover who was abused by him?" William's mouth twitched. What novels were they reading recently? He just shook his head. "We don't have to worry about this. Maybe it's a demon spy in the hands of the Pope. In any case, let's not underestimate this fellow. Since he can become one of the 7 sovereigns of hell, his strength must be extraordinary. Even if we tear up the contract, he might not be killed on the spot by the attacks of 20 sovereigns." The two of them did not dare to say Burial's name directly. After all, in such a place, and at such a time, calling him by his name was like looking for sh*t in the toilet with a lantern. Very soon, the two of them were not slow. Or rather, William's digging speed was far beyond Lancelot's imagination. It was also faster than the speed during the training. It was 10 times faster. No matter what obstacles there were in front of him, no matter where there was magma, not only could he easily avoid them, but he also had the potential of a super excavator. Lancelot could not help but want to say that if the dwarves had William's hands, they would definitely be worshipped as divine weapons. After all, the dwarves had the belief of digging through the gods' continent. Although they had been played by a group of Balrog bullies, their intention to dig through the gods' continent had never stopped. The handsome little prince could not be bothered with what he was thinking. Their mental strength was linked, and they knew each other's thoughts. 10 minutes. That was right. William had slightly slowed down, but he still managed to dig the target's location. But he really could not slow down. He was used to it. Practice makes perfect. Now, digging a hole was like eating with chopsticks. It was impossible to send food to one's nose. In the pitch-black underground cave, there was not a trace of light. Only the panting sounds of the 2 bully devils could be heard. Lancelot pointed below, and William nodded. Subsequently, Lancelot took out 6 black nails from his space ring and used his hands to hit the nails into the ground around the two of them. It was accompanied by a chanting sound. A weak black magic appeared, forming a defensive shield that enveloped the two of them. William continued to dig downwards. Bang! A crack suddenly appeared under their feet, but it only expanded to the vicinity of the nails before it stopped. The heat waves that emerged from the crack and the changing air pressure were also blocked by the magic shield. Next, William pushed the crack open, revealing the magma inside. As the air pressure did not change, it could not flow into the two of them. But this was not the most important thing, because the two of them still had to enter the magma to find the contract. They took a deep breath at the same time, and a layer of solid black battle energy was attached to the surface of their bodies. They dived into the magma. The temperature of the magma was generally around 900 to 1,300 degrees Celsius. The temperature produced by many gas stoves was even higher than the temperature of the magma. Therefore, the battle energy shield of the two could easily isolate the magma, and it did not consume too much of their energy. But there was a problem. In the magma, the two of them could not obtain excess magic, and their recovery speed was extremely slow. Even William's information panel had a negative buff, and he was also restricted. Although they had magic potions, they could not drink the magma like it was water. They would not die, but it would not be good to drink too much of the magma. The two of them were like small mermen, happily swimming around in the magma. They must be very anxious. But no one noticed that William had taken away a lot of fire crystals, but it was for the gods' continent, for the humans, elves, and Serafkin. William endured the pain of his mental strength being burned. After 10 minutes and obtaining more than 300 fire crystals, he found the black crystal coffin at the bottom of the magma. When Lancelot saw this scene, he did not hesitate. He set up the magic formation again in an attempt to delay the information and slow down Burial's detection. But what was the effect? No one could be sure, because not only was there a magic barrier on the crystal coffin, but the contract also had Burial's soul imprint. Therefore, William took a deep breath, gulp, gulp. At that moment, the prince's face turned red. He was angry. He wanted to calm down, but his throat was scalded by a hot current, and he could not speak. he suddenly reached out to grab the crystal coffin. The crystal coffin, which was made of unknown materials, was crushed like tofu in his hand, until he held the dragon skin contract that did not melt into magma. He felt a sense of crisis. Bang! He did not dare to hesitate. He immediately crushed the contract. Meanwhile, the atmosphere of the banquet instantly froze. A total of 20 Lords of Darkness attacked at the same time. Chapter 473. The 20 Lords of Darkness attacked at the same time. Just the aftermath of the battle caused countless palaces to collapse, and countless devils died on the spot. But what no one had expected was that not only did Burial block the joint attack of these Lords of Darkness, but he also sneered and tore open a spatial rift. He hooked his hand and said, "Come, don't destroy my home." The 72 devil gods were shocked, but the Lords of Darkness who were ranked in the top 20 were not afraid. As sages, their eyes were bright. As long as Burial had not stepped into the Lord level, there was nothing to be afraid of. These devils followed Burial and walked in. This was just like how sages usually did not fight in the world of gods. Instead, they opened up an alternate dimension as the battlefield. Otherwise, the destruction would be too great. This so-called World Destroyer Mountain would be blown to pieces. The remaining thousands of legendary devils, Death Knights, Balrogs, and so on were quiet for less than 3 seconds before an earth-shattering battle broke out. The Palace of Pantamananan, which had been built for tens of thousands of years, was completely destroyed by the aftermath of the battle in a short period of time. In short, Burial's home was gone. However, Burial had already secretly sent a voice transmission. His legendary professionals were going to kill the 72 devil gods who had lost their contracts. He also sent dozens of his most obedient subordinates to capture the 2 epic devils who had broken the contract. He had already seen the 2 guys and sensed their auras. He had to find out who knew the location of the contract and still dared to betray him. Burial's combat power was amazing. He had blocked the joint attack of 20 Lords of Darkness, which made many legendary devils confident in him. Now, half of the 1,000 legendary professionals were standing on both sides. Daniel did not attack any of the Lords of Darkness because he had to wait for William and Burial to leave safely. At this moment, he was the only Hell Knight who did not attack, and no one looked for him as an opponent. But when he saw dozens of legendary devils rushing towards Burial's palace, he turned into a ray of black light and immediately blocked the way of this group of people. "Daniel, it's you. You damn traitor. To think that the Devil Lord had such high hopes for you." A devil shouted angrily. A flame demon who had shrunk his body laughed coldly, drawing his long sword that resembled lava. "But you're really confident. Do you think that you alone can stop all of us?" Daniel looked down at the long saber in his hand and said indifferently, "No, I still have this saber." The 20 or so legendary demons seemed to have heard a joke. The next second, they attacked at the same time. One-on-one, they definitely couldn't beat him, but they still had the confidence. But they were demons, so of course they had to fight in groups. However, the 20 or so legends unleashed their domains at the same time and were about to kill Daniel in one blow. The man on the nightmare warhorse merely flicked his saber with his finger. The buzzing sound created countless saber lights that swept in all directions, blocking the shock waves caused by the unfolding of the domain. Meanwhile, everything in his eyes seemed to have slowed down. It could also be said that his speed became even faster, so fast that the legendary professions of the same rank could only see the phantom that he produced. He patted the horse's rump and told it to leave this place. Then, he leisurely strolled in front of the demon. One slash. Swoosh. The head with bull horns fell to the ground. A legendary demon's body was torn apart. His whole body was like mud, and the saber energy destroyed all his vitality. The intermediate elemental body did not give him much strong defense. His armor, skin, muscles, and bones were more fragile than tofu in front of that saber. No one saw clearly how he avoided the attacks of the crowd, and no one saw clearly how he used the saber to kill a demon of the same rank on the spot without even having the time to dodge. Time? It was better to say that it was the realm of refinement, a kind of combat awareness. He could use the most reasonable steps, walk at the fastest speed, and use the least amount of battle energy to slash the strongest saber technique. If an ordinary legend used all his strength to punch, the battle energy that erupted from this punch was scattered, and it might break the enemy's shield, but it would not cause any damage. But Daniel, who had the realm of refinement, could use only a small amount of battle energy and a point of his finger to penetrate the shield and burst a hole in the opponent's chest. More importantly, when he entered this state, he only felt that the opponent's movements were getting slower and slower, and his own were getting faster and faster. It was also because of this that he also died on the battlefield on that day, when he killed 13 legends with his blade. And now, he was far stronger than he was in his previous life, and this kind of combat awareness did not disappear. Just like that, 10 seconds, 10 slashes, 10 legendary demons were turned into meat paste. The other legendary demons were so shocked that they did not dare to move forward. Because of the 10 seconds just now, their countless attacks did not even manage to harm his shadow, yet their companions died easily under his saber. Refinement. He temporarily entered the saint realm. A flame demon could not help but exclaim, "There is also a holy weapon." Someone could not help but say, "Ah, it is stained with the blood of the saints and the blood of countless legendary masters. It does not look like a holy weapon, but more like a holy weapon." Many demons were envious, but Daniel's true strength made them not dare to underestimate him. This realm of refinement was an ability that only saints could have, and it indirectly meant that Daniel had a high chance of becoming a saint. But 10 seconds, that was Daniel's limit. At this moment, he vomited blood and seemed to be unable to stand steadily, especially the temptation that the saber brought. It made the greedy demons not want to give up, and Daniel used his ultimate move at the first moment. What should he do next? He did not need to deal with it. He looked at the moment when these dozen legendary demons burst out and rushed toward him. There was no fear in his heart, and no fear. There was even a little disappointment, because there was no Lord of Darkness charging over at this moment. Daniel thought of many things. He seemed to have entered the final radiance of the setting sun, and fresh faces flashed across his mind. As those faces all turned into corpses, he roared. He waved his saber. The blood-red saber light hung high in the night sky, like a rainbow. The other legendary professions on the battlefield could not help but look over in shock, and many of them died under the aftermath of that saber. They felt the power of that saber. It seemed to be able to split heaven and earth. Let's not talk about those people. The dozen demons in front of Daniel were extremely regretful, but there was no way out, because they had seen a place that was more like hell than hell. A mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. A boundless world of blood. This was Daniel's mental world. There were countless ferocious humans and elves. They stretched out their hands among the corpses, as if they wanted to pull them into the abyss. One saber strike into the sage state. It had been accumulating power for 3,000 years. When William and Lancelot shattered the contract, they quickly escaped. Because of that suffocating feeling of terror, they didn't dare to stop at all. Their fleeing speed wasn't slow, but their escape route wasn't in the sky, nor was it by digging a hole. Instead, they followed the flow of underground magma and went downstream. If there was anything in the magma, basically, other than the sleeping flame demon, it was difficult to encounter anything else. William did not dare to swim in front. He let Lancelot lead the way, and the two of them avoided one possible danger after another. However, he did not know if his luck was too low, which dragged down the luck of the team. When the two of them were about to reach the teleportation portal, they encountered an awakening flame demon. Finish the battle quickly. Lancelot transmitted his voice. It was only an epic flame demon, so he could not delay them. William nodded, and the two of them attacked at the same time. Flame demon? The flame demon had high health points and terrifying defense. As long as he was a creature of the same level, how long could he last against William and Lancelot? The flame demon was innocent. He felt that someone was stepping on his head. When he woke up, he wanted to scold them. If they apologized, he could forgive these two fellows for the sake of the devil race. However, the two demons did not give him chance. Therefore, only 8 seconds had passed since he closed his eyes. Then, he closed his eyes permanently. What was even more hateful was William also kept the corpse into his space ring. They did not know how long Daniel could last, and they did not know how many enemies were chasing after him. The two of them tried their best to escape. They had no intention to rescue him. They did not even have the time to feel emotional. They could imagine that Daniel had sacrificed his life to give them time to escape. It was not for them to reminisce about him. The speed of the two of them was off the charts. When they were near the small city in the spatial rift, the two of them soared into the sky from underground. Accompanied by magma that looked like fireworks, they rushed towards the teleportation portal with a series of sonic booms. This small city was originally guarded by an epic-ranked demon. He also felt the battle aura that was thousands of miles away. He was at a loss. But when he saw the two demons rushing out of the ground and shouting to run away, he felt a chill run down his spine. He thought that the battle thousands of miles away had spread to this place. He also rushed towards the portal without hesitation, not even asking his trusted demons to come with him. That was right. This small city lord had the same idea as William and the others. No matter how earth-shattering the battle in the dark world was. Because no matter how the lords of darkness fought, they could not reach the god's world. Not to mention that the great devil King Burial City had been destroyed, the dazzling sword light had even split the world destroyer mountain into two. Other than the lords of darkness, there was no other possibility. Therefore, many devils in Burial's territory tried their best to stay away from this place to avoid being killed by the aftermath of the battle. William and Lancelot were not slow. They entered almost at the same time as the small city lord. Until then, the two of them dared to look back, and the blood-red sword light still did not dissipate. It was like an indomitable god of death. Even if there were millions of people, it would still go forward. Chapter 474. The mission was completed. When William returned to the god's world from the spatial rift, there was an obvious notification on the information panel. This meant that Delonos, who was on the Moonlight Island, was not a threat to him. He and Lancelot looked at each other. They did not stay there for long. They quickly left the Moonlight Island and headed to the Temple of Light. The news of a civil war in the Dark World would soon be known by everyone. It would cause a huge reaction. After all, Devil King Burial, who controlled the lives of 20 Dark Lords and thousands of legendary professionals, had a rebellion in his territory. It was not inferior to the 3 human empires in the legendary continent. The emergence of such a situation. It would not be settled in a short period of time. It might even delay the darkness invasion. As a result, the butterfly effect caused by William was too great. It even changed the direction of the war between the two worlds. But then again, the Pope of Light could not intervene personally. This mission had to be done by him. The reason for that was because only he possessed the ability to instantly break through the spirit formation and crush the contract. If not, it would take some time for the sage to destroy the contract. But that short period of time was enough for Burial to notice that someone was trying to destroy the contract. The only thing that worried them now was the Hell Knight Daniel. Before he left, he gave Daniel a few random teleportation scrolls. He did not know if Daniel was willing to use them. They left the Moonlight Island, which was filled with dark creatures. But on their way to the Temple of Light, a team of 13 epic professionals was planning to go to the Moonlight Island to kill a group of dark creatures. The race of this team was very complicated. Half of them were Moonlight Elves, 3 half-elves, and the rest were all humans. The leader was a warlock wearing white armor. He held a magic wand made of dragon bones in his right hand and a long sword at his waist. This young man had a straw stick in his mouth. He did not look like a warlock at all. He was a respected warlock, a respected magic professional, and a battlefield AoE controller. But he had to play close combat. But the other team members looked as if they were used to it. At this moment, they flew close to the surface of the lake and wanted to sneak into the Moonlight Island. But now, 2 rays of black light pierced through the sky and flew towards them with thunderous sounds. Even when the two sides could see each other's faces, the 2 humans covered in dark auras did not stop. They passed right over their heads. If asterisk. The magus with the grass stick in his mouth was unhappy. What a F asterisk king snob. Moonlight Island was the territory of the dark magic world, but this huge moonlight lake was not their territory. You even want to fly to the human world like this? You really don't see us as humans. McLean rushed into the sky with his wand and roared, "Kill them!" The other 12 epic professionals didn't stop either. These rangers, warriors, shield bearers, and mages were all epic powerhouses. Most of them had a blood feud with dark creatures. Many of their family members had died in the first Darkness invasion. They were originally going to Moonlight Island to kill some people, but now he could kill people on the river. There was no need to take the risk of entering the tower to kill. William and Lancelot were stunned. They had restored their human form, but the dark aura on their bodies could not be concealed. In addition, they were walking out from here. This group of adventurers would definitely think that they were traitors. Lancelot saw that this group of adventurers was about to charge at him. The warlock led the charge. The shield bearers and warriors sandwiched him in the middle. The mages and rangers stood at the back, ready to attack at any time. They were full of murderous intent. What was more important was this group of adventurers carried a magic amulet. Within a radius of 10,000 meters, they could receive the enhancement of the magic amulet. They could be considered a decent team of adventurers. But when William saw the warlock, who was wearing armor and holding a magic staff, he couldn't help but say, "McLean? Oh, you know me?" The warlock grinned. He couldn't help but say to his companion, "See, my name has made me known to the devils. I heard from my teacher that you peed in the shape of a butterfly when you were 8 years old." Then, William winked at Lancelot and turned to leave. McLean was stunned. He stopped his companion, who was about to chase after him, because this was a little secret between him and his teacher. If he didn't know his teacher, or if he was very close to him, he wouldn't know about this. "Sigh, that's not right. He's not a warlock, and he can't be my teacher's new apprentice." McLean wanted to turn back, but the two figures had disappeared. D*M in it. The warlock clenched his fists in hatred. "What's going on?" "Our captain wet the bed at 8 years old." A female half-elf ranger, who was holding a bow, chuckled. "Let's go." "Why would I wet the bed? Did you see my little cutie with your own eyes?" "Pervert." The female half-elf blushed. She wanted to pick up her bow and shoot an arrow at his waist. Lancelot glanced at William thoughtfully and asked curiously, "This person doesn't know you, right? How do you know that he wet the bed at 8 years old?" William didn't explain further. "It's a secret. More importantly, we shouldn't get into trouble along the way. After all, our route isn't very secretive. If a warlock sage deduces along the way, he might detect us." "Who's his teacher?" The Viscount of Light didn't want to give up. "White-robed knight," William replied and didn't say anything else. Lancelot was speechless. It was no wonder that William was a close-range fighter with a magic staff. His teacher was the White-robed knight. This person was also a powerful warlock saint. He was a powerful professional who had risen at the end of the Second Era. He hated dark creatures and was a neutral force. He was a person and a force. He wandered the 7 continents all year round, killing all dark forces he saw. His title of White-robed Knight was interesting. This warlock sage wore a white robe all year round, and he rode on a legendary white dragon. That was right. He was also a dragon knight. However, he made the white dragon transform into a horse all year round. In addition, this warlock sage was proficient in many types of witchcraft, magic, and runes. He especially liked to charge into the battlefield on a horse. That was how he got the title of White-robed Knight. William sighed. He didn't expect to meet McLean here. The secret of him wetting the bed was not leaked by an NPC. Instead, it was leaked by a lucky player who became the apprentice of this white-robed knight. It was then widely spread among the players. As a result, that player was forcefully expelled from the sect by his senior brother. William stroked his chin. He knew that McLean had a mission to avenge his fiancée. The reward was a good endowment. Now that he knew where McLean was, he could do it if he had the chance in the future. After this battle, both of them didn't encounter any accidents. Soon, They arrived at the predetermined location. As expected, the space enchanter who had sent them away was waiting here. When this elder saw that Daniel didn't appear, he sighed slightly and led the two of them into the space tunnel, the main hall of the Temple of Light. When the two of them walked out of the space tunnel, they arrived at this place. William narrowed his eyes. It was the Supreme Pontiff of Light. The Supreme Pontiff of Light, who looked as young as William, was sitting in a high position. Behind him was a huge mural of a sword and a shield. The Deputy Temple Lord, Ursula, sat on his left. There was an empty position on the right, but the Temple of Light hadn't produced a new sage for so many years. The position of the Deputy Temple Lord had always been empty. When the two of them walked out of the space tunnel, a Temple Knight reported in surprise, reporting to Supreme Pontiff, according to the spies of the Dark World, the 72 devil gods led hundreds of legendary professionals in a rebellion. The volcano of destruction was destroyed, and Burial's palace was destroyed. More than 100 legendary professionals were killed or injured. There was also a Hell Knight named Daniel. He slashed and killed more than 10 legendary professionals. He split the volcano of destruction. He seemed to have the combat power of a sage, but it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. But this was not the most important thing, because there was a meteor shower in the Dark World. This meant that a Lord of Darkness had died, but they didn't know which of the 72 devil gods it was. Burial didn't die in battle, but he was seriously injured and escaped. Now there was a war in the tens of millions of miles around the volcano of destruction, and it would last for a long time. Supreme Pontiff, rejoice. The Dark World is in chaos. I know, I just felt that Burial wouldn't die so easily, but I really didn't expect that under the combined forces of 20 Dark Sovereigns, one of them would still be killed. Too weak. The Light Pope waved his hand, signaling for the Paladin to retreat. But the Deputy Temple Lord, Ursula, still smiled and flattered. Supreme Pontiff, you're a sly old fox. You came up with a plan and killed one of the Lords of Darkness. Powerful. When William heard this, he couldn't help but laugh, but he held it in. The extremely young Supreme Pontiff of Light couldn't be bothered with Ursula, who said that he was sinister. This old man had waited for the position of Supreme Pontiff for tens of thousands of years. Many Supreme Pontiffs of Light had died, but he had always been the second in command. However, I'm excited. Not only have I become the Supreme Pontiff of Light, but I've also improved. Come, let me see how you're going to kill me. When Lancelot saw the Supreme Pontiff looking at them, he immediately knelt on one knee and said in a deep voice, "Greetings, Supreme Pontiff. The mission has been completed." The latter nodded and suddenly asked, "How do you feel after going to the Dark World?" "I like to ask Daniel, go back and reflect on what you saw in the Dark World. We'll talk about other things later. You may leave." The Supreme Pontiff of Light watched Lancelot leave. The son of the God of Light. Originally, he was a trump card to deal with the God of Light. But now, his trump card had become his own. The Supreme Pontiff of Light turned to look at William. William grinned and waited for the Supreme Pontiff's blessing. Ding dong. Prompt. The Supreme Pontiff of Light has used divine blessing on you. Prompt. Your luck will be doubled permanently. William was expressionless. Doubled? Are you trying to tell me that you're going to double it? From 3 to 6? F***CK. You're an immortal. What lousy wanted wasn't a doubling. If it wasn't a geometric doubling, then what was the point of doubling to him? What I wanted was a sudden increase. His Royal Highness wanted to cry, but no tears came out. For a normal person, the divine blessing was a real boost. If the little princess came, she would instantly evolve into a super lucky little princess. But to him, it didn't even have the slightest bit of use. It was a huge loss. William was wondering if he could get the Supreme Pontiff of Light to change the reward. The young Supreme Pontiff of Light came to his side and patted his shoulder. "Come with me. I have some questions for you. If you're telling the truth, it's not a big deal to change the reward." "Okay, I'll tell you everything I know. I won't go back on my words." The Supreme Pontiff of Light glanced at Ursula. "Was this guy your apprentice?" It slipped my tongue. William felt a little nervous. After all, in his previous life, this was the first time he had close contact with a Lord God. He was a little excited. Then he followed the Supreme Pontiff of Light into the side palace. He did not know how long it would take before he could walk out. Chapter 475. A full 3 hours passed. William walked out of the side hall with a disdainful gait. Not only did he have a pleasant chat with the Pope of Light, but their relationship had also improved. Besides the 9,000 points of camp affinity, their affinity had also soared to 130 points. Yes, it was quite a lot. In any case, he was handsome and awesome. Even overgods would still have to bow down to his good looks. Moreover, this also proved that he, William Blackleaf, was the most handsome blue child in the gods' continent. Of course, the prerequisite was that he did not dislike you. Otherwise, it would be difficult to change his first impression. As for what the two of them talked about, most of the time, it was the Pope of Light asking about William's opinion of the Chosen Ones. He wanted to know if the Chosen Ones would be of great use in the future. William did not hesitate. He did not know if the Chosen Ones would be of great use. Then he made it very clear that for this group of people who only cared about money, in most cases, they only cared about money and not people. As long as the reward was enough, they would do whatever the Chosen One was told to do, not to mention selling their lives. It was not a problem for them to sell their butts. Many players were still serving the devils. How despicable! Because of this, a lot of the wealth of the City of Dawn had been invested into the pockets of the Chosen Ones. But William was weak, had no backing, and was still young. He could only make use of these ungrateful fellows. William also said that the Chosen Ones kept disappearing, which disrupted many of his plans. He had almost lost the City of Dawn. The Pope of Light looked at him deeply. He did not believe William, but the fact that the Chosen Ones could disappear at any time made him very hesitant. After all, the higher-ups in the magical fantasy world liked professionals who could be controlled by them, not a group of fellows who would do anything for money. Besides that, nobody knew what else the two of them talked about. But the mission had been completed. There would be rewards. It was a pity that because William was full of lies and the Pope of Light did not have additional blessing skills, he did not change the effects of the sacred blessing. But the equipment that he casually took out was definitely worthy of the SSS level mission. It was definitely worthy of an SSS rank quest reward. It was worth it for His Royal Highness, someone else, to risk his life to complete this quest. In one word, it was a huge profit. William didn't even know why he gave this to him. Could it be that he thought that William was the son of heaven? So he personally put this ring on William's ring finger? TSK. William did not care about that. He decided to look at the attributes and skills of the ring. Ring of Time, Destiny Quality, Legendary Level, Legendary Materials, Sands of Time, Fragments of Time, Producer, Child of Time Strength plus 120 Agility plus 150 Stamina plus 110 Intelligence plus 180 Charm plus 30 Weight. 0. 1 Usage Restrictions. None Usage Restriction. Restriction broken. Pope of Light. Time Deceleration. Active Skill. After using this skill, everything within 30 meters of you will enter a state of time deceleration. Duration. 10-second skill consumption. None cooldown. 24 hours. Time Reversal. Active Skill. After using this skill, the cooldown time of all your skills will be reset. Skill Consumption. None cooldown. 7 days. Guardian of Time. Passive. Apart from Saint Tier time abilities, most other time abilities have no effect on you. Introduction. This is the wedding ring that the Son of Time gave to his fiancée. No one knows when the Pope of Light dug it out from his grave. William gulped. Good Lord, it was really a wedding ring. He quickly changed the position of the ring. He did not know what the Pope was trying to do. Did the Pope think that he could conquer William by giving him a ring? Bah, at least 2. No, 3 divine weapons would give him a chance to woo William. And this was because he was strong enough to protect William. The Son of Time was the son of the God of Time. He was also a God of Time. But like his father, he had died a long time ago. The God of Time seemed to have reincarnated in another continent, but the Son of Time did not have the chance to reincarnate. I have to say that the power of this ring is not in the time deceleration or the time reversal that can remove the cooldown of skills. It is the super passive skill Guardian of Time. William took a deep breath. He felt that his strength was still very good. It could even be said that although he was wary of professionals with spatial endowment, he was not too afraid, because his combat awareness was very strong. Even if it was very troublesome to deal with spatial professionals, he could still sense the fluctuations in space. He would not be defeated by spatial professionals. But time, this kind of person was really abnormal. It was not obvious when they advanced from beginner to grandmaster, but when they advanced to epic and legendary, they would be like gods in a one-on-one fight. Akarov was currently at epic, and it was not his strongest state. When he became legendary, he would be comparable to a reincarnated god, because time was a super ability that could slow down one's thoughts, actions, and even everything else. It was not something that could be avoided under normal circumstances. But now that he had the Ring of Time, he did not have to be so afraid. He did not have to carry a lot of scrolls in his pocket to break the restrictions of time. Oh, it was all personally made by director Amo. After all, the goddess of magic knew his strengths and weaknesses. She knew what he was most afraid of. With a total of 1 billion experience points, I have finally accumulated enough experience points to reach level 150. I can also upgrade my other skills a little, and my combat power will increase significantly. After all, when I was fighting for the epic title, according to the locals, I was only at the beginning stage of the epic level. There were still middle, late, and peak stages. I'm still far from the strongest state of the epic level, but I still have a title, Blade of Thunder. William heaved a sigh of relief. It had only been 1.5 years since the version update, and he had relied on completing missions to reach level 150. Perhaps in the next version, when the players appeared, he would become a legend. Of course, he could obtain hundreds of millions of experience points, mainly because the difficulty of the missions was too high. If he wanted to level up again, he would need about 700 to 800 million experience points, and this was the experience points for his character. His other skills and secret manuals added up would cost about 1.5 billion experience points. It was really a scam. Sigh, the road to legendary is a long one. William sighed. He did not stay in the Temple of Light any longer. He went to inform Lancelot that he could chat with him when he was free. Then he went to the extreme north. After all, besides the few missions that he had to complete, he would be staying in the extreme north for the next few years. In the Temple of Light, Ursula watched William walk away happily. He glanced at the Pope, who was addicted to night novels. He could not help but say, "How can I not read it? If I read it again, I will tear up all the night novels in the library." What? You want me to train? I don't have any inspiration. The Pope of Light slammed the table. D*MN. Why did you stop me from reading night novels? Did you think that you were my wife? Bah! If Lancelot had not seen you reading night novels all day, would he have read them for no reason? Ursula scolded the Pope. Speaking of which, how could the Pope of Light be immersed in night novels? Brother, tell me, the protagonists of those novels were at most legendary. They did not even dare to write about sages. They could not even understand it. How could the Pope enjoy reading novels? The young Pope was unhappy. He kept the novel and lazily glanced at Ursula. He did not say anything. He thought that Ursula knew the benefits of reading novels. If he had not read so many novels, he would not have thought of so many tricks. Why did you give him the ring of the Son of Time? If you have something good, you can give it to Lancelot. If you have something good, you can give it to Halfdo. Why did you give it to an outsider? Ursula sighed. The ring was useless for sages, but it was very useful for legendary and epic professionals. I dug it out. It's none of your business. The Pope of Light did not bother to explain. He was the strongest. He could do whatever he wanted. Ursula sighed and held his forehead. He pondered for a few seconds and said, "I don't know what you are planning, but William is a half-elf. He is in the extreme north. It is enough to show that he is loyal to the elves." You are still narrow-minded. Don't say anything. Didn't you do the same? Don't forget that you are also a human. Yes, I am a human. The Pope of Light's expression finally became serious. He said in a deep voice, "But after reaching my level, I realized that I've been standing too low, so I see too little. Ursula, when you reach my level, you will not only think about race, but also about the two worlds. How powerful was the dragon race in the First Era? Why did it fall apart? The Civil War was one reason. More importantly, the dragon race did not have a single omnipotent expert. In the Second Era, if it were not for racial discrimination, how could the Dark World invade the elves, humans, winged people, and dwarves? The human race seemed to have seized the opportunity to rise in the Third Era, but it still fell apart. This is because the human race did not have omnipotent expert. Then what do you want to do? Wait for the right time to become the human emperor? Ursula laughed. The Pope of Light understood what he meant. He also knew that this was a difficult choice to make. If it was at the end of the Second Era or the beginning of the First Era, if he was at this level, it might be possible. However, it was as difficult as ascending to heaven now. This was not only a matter of ability, but also because the human empires had strong confidence and ambition. They would not submit to him easily. Reach a consensus? The internal conflict would be too serious. The Dark World would probably be happy. More importantly, the changes in the Fourth Era were too great. If he could break the curse of 3 eras and become a lord, it meant that there would be others. Otherwise, the reincarnations of the gods would not appear in batches. However, the Pope of Light still mumbled, "I'm not that great. I just want everyone who seems to have the ability to save this world to become stronger so that they will not fall along the way. Lancelot has my protection. Even if the god of darkness descends, he will not die, let alone the Dark Lord. In this great era, I see that many races have people like the sons of the era. I won't teach them, but I know that I can use my way to give them some ability to protect themselves so that they can grow faster." At this point, he looked at Ursula with a bitter smile. "Do you know?" Ursula was confused. Before he could ask, the Pope of Light continued, "I've predicted the future. The Fourth Era will be a bloody world. It will be a bloody world that is more terrifying than the 3 eras and the mythological era. Even if they did, they would be discovered in advance. But as the Lord of the City of Dawn, William had to think of everything. He could not give the enemy any opportunities. As soon as the handsome prince walked out of the teleportation hall, many soldiers and mercenaries who heard the noise hurried over to greet their lord who had not returned for a long time. William did not leave in a hurry. As their lord, he should not leave for too long. Otherwise, it would affect the morale of the army. Fortunately, he was talented enough. Very handsome, legendary lord. With just these 2 talents, he did not have to worry about the loyalty of his soldiers decreasing. "Hey, Tony, I remember that you were an advanced professional last year. Now you're a grandmaster." William had a good memory. When he saw some people, he would greet them. A young man named Tony had 2 small mustaches. When he smiled, he looked like Chaplin. "It's all thanks to the magical stones that Prince William gave me. Otherwise, I would not have been able to advance so quickly. It's good that Prince William is back. Should we hurry up with the war? It's a military secret. I can't tell you." William patted his shoulder and smiled as he walked away. Then he saw another guy and said, "James, you're an advanced. You can do it." "Hey, Trumbo, why are you still in advanced? You're too stupid. Hurry up and go back to train." William kicked him. The warrior with the bird's nest made a face and did not dare to dodge. After being kicked, his affinity with William soared and he left to train. "They're all good warriors under my command. Look at their names. They must be the reincarnations of Shio Air." William sighed. After he chased everyone away, the affinity of the soldiers of the Dawn army soared again. There was no other reason. The high-ranking soldiers did not need to say much to the low-ranking soldiers. Just a single sentence and a single glance from him was enough to increase their favorable impression of him. This was the difference between the levels and levels. This feeling of looking up to the higher-ups would make the low-ranking soldiers feel that they were valued. For example, when the leaders of the country were visiting, if they shook hands with you, some young and energetic lads would be willing to sacrifice their lives for them. The difference? It was too big. The prince walked along the familiar streets, looking at the buildings that were as sturdy as mountains, as well as the eternal snows cape. Walking on a solid road, he soon arrived at the residence of the high-ranking personnel. In this military stronghold, The core members of William lived in a courtyard, but each of them had their own house. This was only a fortress. It was not realistic for one person to occupy a residence of thousands of square meters. Moreover, the core members lived together. It was convenient for them to interact and learn from each other. It could also prevent betrayal, which was almost impossible to happen. When His Royal Highness walked to the gate, the two Grandmaster-level guards hurriedly saluted him respectfully and quickly opened the gate. Until this moment, William finally sensed something strange. There was a layer of barrier. No wonder he did not hear any sounds from inside. There were many people living in this courtyard. T-Rex, Flaming Kid Burned Cinder, Metal Frenzy Diablo, the unparalleled Shield Warrior Whales, the pretentious Lautner, and the Storm Ranger Legolas. Albert had a residence here, but he spent most of his time with the warriors of the Dragonblood Legion. They ate and lived together. What an adorable General Dragon. Alec was in charge of the intelligence department of the City of Dawn. Eric was the deputy leader of the Dawn mercenary team. Both of them were in the City of Dawn. If not, they would be busy with diplomatic and espionage missions. They did not need to stay here. Recently, Annie was not here. She had returned to her mother, to the Sunset Forest where the Moonlight Elves lived. At this moment, T-Rex was sparring with Meng Lu, who had just arrived. Both of them had huge muscles. The fight was intense. It was a clash of muscles and fists. The more they fought, the more excited they became. When their eyes met, sparks would fly. This kind of feeling of empathy seemed to be very bad. They were so intense that they did not even realize that William had entered the room. The only one who was watching the battle was Wales, the shield warrior. This muscular man, who was also a close combat brawler, was also rubbing his palms together as he watched. He couldn't wait to rush up and surround the two of them. Fortunately, he was not blind. When he saw William, he hurriedly shouted, "Prince William is back. Stop fighting. If you want to fight, go to the dance room." But when T-Rex was distracted and wanted to turn around, Meng Lu circled behind him. Meng Lu used his steel-like arms to lock T-Rex's throat. Meng Lu wrapped his legs around T-Rex's waist. Both of them fell to the ground. T-Rex was unable to move. D*MN, let go of me. Otherwise, I'll show you the power of a T-Rex. The veins on T-Rex's neck bulged. He wanted to use his hands to release Meng Lu. But besides his face turning red, he could not move Meng Lu's arms. Meng Lu's mouth was on T-Rex's ear, and he panted like a bull. He coldly laughed and said, "Do you want to wrestle with a bull? You'll get a taste of the bull's horns." He was a strong man. He would not let go. When T-Rex felt that there was an extra hand on his back, he was shocked. He frantically slapped the ground with his hands. After Meng Lu released him, Rampaging Dragon flew into a rage. It was clear that he wanted to fight with Meng Lu again. But the other people who were training had also come out. Prince William was also present, so T-Rex could only suppress his anger. D*MN. He knew that there was something wrong with Meng Lu. Even if his mother was seriously ill, he would still have women. In addition, no mercenary team in the northern region dared to take him in. Perhaps many people could not withstand his third hand. He was too F***king hard. Who could withstand this? But he was T-Rex. You little B***TCH, I'll definitely let you know why your chrysanthemum is so red. Your Highness, I've missed you so much. You've been gone for a year and a half. I thought you were tired of me, a Grandmaster executive. Lautner was wearing a red cloak, and he flew over at lightning speed. William hurriedly stretched out his hand to stop him. He said in a deep voice, "Uncle, if you want to see me, you can find time to meet me at the Beast Castle." "Oh, forget it." Lautner pondered for 2 seconds. Then, he turned around and sat at the side. He could act tough, but he was a very pragmatic person. He knew that his level was not high enough for him to follow William around. "Look for you? What a joke. I'm enjoying staying in the Dawn Fortress, and I'm an executive. I'm having a great time. Prince William has become more handsome recently. That's for sure. In terms of looks, only Prince William can surpass me." Burned Cinder stroked his beardless chin. He could not help but ponder. Diablo glanced at his old rival and secretly flattered him. Then, he said in a deep voice, "Prince William, when you return, there will definitely be a war. When that time comes, please let me be the vanguard. I'll charge and break through the enemy lines for you." Legolas did not say much. He was a quiet, handsome man. He nodded at William and sat at the side in silence. William looked at the people in front of him. Burn Cinder, Diablo, the newcomer Meng Lu, and Albert had become epic professionals. The others seemed to have become epic professionals. After all, in the extreme north, as long as they did not die in a battle, they would gain sufficient battle experience. This was how they became stronger. William noticed that they were in good spirits and said, "Very good. It seems that while I'm not around, you've improved a lot. Don't be arrogant as an epic. Don't be discouraged even if you're still a grandmaster. Especially since you've been sparring here all day. It seems that you've been holding back. The war will start soon. Just wait. There'll be plenty of time for you to vent." "Prince William, let's spar," Burn Cinder suddenly suggested. Diablo's eyes lit up. Meng Lu also wanted to take revenge. William raised his eyebrows. When he had fought with Meng Lu, he had hidden his trump card. He did not even use his peerless skill. Meng Lu was probably not convinced. Burn Cinder and Diablo seemed to want to be beaten up. Furthermore, they had obtained the Ring of Time. Gosh, he had used his peerless skill twice in a row. He could also use his intermediate elemental body twice. That was the combat power of a legendary. William could defeat everything. He narrowed his eyes and smiled. "Come, the three of you. Call Albert over. I'll beat you until you're begging for your father." Chapter 477. Peerless. William did not need to use the set ability. After activating his peerless skill, his combat power might not have increased to the point where he could punch out a small pancake with a single punch, but in the epic level, his combat power was definitely comparable to that of a sage. Although he couldn't be on par with the legend and the reincarnation of the Lord God without using the elemental armor set skills, he still reached the strongest level that an epic could reach. With the help of the Ring of Time, Burn Cinder, Diablo, Albert, and Meng Lu were no match for him. It cannot be helped. The unparalleled Holy Thunder was too powerful with its side effects. William was already at level 150, and the unparalleled Holy Thunder had also leveled up a few times. Coupled with the various abilities of the Ring of Time, the four of them were almost doubting their lives. They felt a phantom attack, and their bodies suffered an unimaginable blow. It was as if they had been hit in the chest by a battering ram. They fell from the sky and created 4 craters on the snowy ground. Diablo and Burn Cinder, who had lower defense, spat out many pieces of their internal organs. Their noses were bruised and their faces were swollen. It was as if an orc with a mace had baptized them with fatherly love. But they were truly convinced. Meng Lu stubbornly got up. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood inside. Prince William held back when we fought. Was Crass that powerful? I remember that not only did Prince William use this move, but his elemental body also changed. He even unleashed the aura of a legendary. Crass. He is indeed very strong, but he needs to borrow the power of the earth to do so. If the arena had been on the ground, he would have been able to unleash the power of a legendary in a short period of time. At that time, it's hard to say who would have won. William narrowed his eyes. The reincarnation of a god. If William had not obtained the legendary Thunder elemental armor, the unparalleled Holy Thunder, and many defensive endowments, he would not have been able to defeat Crass so easily. How could he defeat Crass so easily? The corners of Burn Cinder's mouth twitched. He had just reached the epic level not long ago, and William was already able to unleash the combat power of a legendary expert. Did he hold back just now? MMP, he was done for. William noticed that the others had complicated expressions, so he did not continue to attack them. After all, in his eyes, these 4 fellows were trusted subordinates who had the title of epic. They were also very powerful. It was just that he wasn't too strong. In fact, if he had the chance in the future, he might even be able to attain the strength of a saint. How were geniuses classified when they had the same legendary bloodline? That was ordinary geniuses. Yes, those with legendary bloodlines could at least become epic. Top geniuses with legendary bloodlines had a chance of advancing to the epic level. A super genius would definitely reach the legendary rank and would be more powerful than those of the same rank. They might even get a title. With the potential of a saint, the legend was stable, and there was even a chance of becoming a saint. Then, it was time for the god-tier geniuses. Not only did they possess battle prowess that could transcend realms, they would almost certainly be able to reach the level of a saint. Even among the saints, they would be considered extremely powerful and had a chance of becoming a core god-level existence. The four of them were basically at the level of super geniuses and were not far from the level of geniuses with the potential of a saint. So he comforted them. Unleashing the power of a legend doesn't mean that you could defeat a legend. The fact that I can produce the aura of the legendary rank only means that I have reached that level in one aspect, but not in all aspects. The two can't be compared. As long as you work hard and obtain some opportunities, you might be able to reach the epic level. It's just that it's very difficult. Prince William is right. How will we know if we don't try? After all, we have just reached the epic level. Diablo gritted his teeth and stood up. He was very proud of himself. In the past, William was only slightly stronger than them. But now, he was much stronger than them. This meant that Prince William was working harder than them to become stronger. The slacking prince did not know what Diablo was thinking, but he knew what was going on in his mind. He could have displayed the combat prowess of a saint, but his equipment was awesome. That was why he had displayed his god-level endowments and defeated the reincarnated god of strength class. As for the limitation of growth, sorry, there was no such limitation. As long as he had enough experience and could complete the occupation change mission, he could reach as many realms as there were in this world. There was no upper limit. The truce between both sides did not last for long. It was just that the winter was too cold, and neither side was willing to start a war. But the Orc Empire had to be destroyed. On this issue, the higher-ups of both sides had reached a consensus. The problem now was how long the elves and humans wanted to train their soldiers. Or rather, how many orcs could the icebound sword sage, Gyurti, accept before he abandoned this huge empire? During this period of time, it was time for him to fervently excavate resources. At this moment, a war broke out at the Black Great Wall again. Both sides did not use magic cannons. At most, they used cannons. Epic rank powerhouses often appeared, but they could only fight generals against generals. It was fine for the humans and elves to have epic experts wreak havoc on the battlefield. If the Orc Empire dared to do so, they would have to pay a greater price. That was why Gyurti felt aggrieved and sad during this war. But it was precisely because of this war that he had to start paying attention to the Light and Thunder God. He knew that there were too few geniuses in the Empire. Or rather, the aptitude of the orcs was too poor. He had already tried his best to procreate. Just sons and daughters alone, he had hundreds of them. He didn't even need to have more grandchildren. But he had 8 epic experts and only 1 legendary expert. He had used countless resources to achieve that. It was impossible for him to become a saint. He stood on the tall tower behind the Black Great Wall and watched the orc army gradually collapse under the attacks of the elves and humans. That was why more advanced and grandmaster orcs rushed to the battlefield, hoping to defend this place. The epic experts did not dare to enter the battlefield. The aura of the legendary professionals was closely watched by the enemy legendary experts, and they could not act recklessly. Gyurti could not help but sigh. He turned to look at Taylor and asked, "How much has the natural god grown?" "He has devoured 5 magic mineral veins. His strength and aura have grown a lot. He can now unleash the combat power of the epic peak. He is not weak, but he needs at least 4 magic mineral veins to break through to the legendary level." Taylor swallowed his saliva and replied, "Only he knew how much effort Gyurti had put into raising such a foodie at home." It could be said that Gyurti had even fought with the saints of other continents for those mineral veins. If not for the fact that Gyurti had not occupied too many mineral veins, and that more new mineral veins had appeared due to the recovery of magic, the human saints might have chased him to the legendary continent to find trouble. 4. Gyurti scolded in his heart. This foodie was too much. If he wanted to cultivate him into a saint, did he have to eat more than a dozen magical gemstone mineral veins? But he could not care so much now. The Orc Empire needed another saint too much. This natural god did not have any moral integrity. Not only was he gluttonous and lazy, but he also pretended to be arrogant all day long. It was annoying to look at him, but he got along well with Taylor. He even attacked twice on the Black Great Wall, according to Taylor's request. Putting everything else aside, this innate god was simply too powerful. The three epic experts of the Ice Frost Empire were severely injured in less than 10 moves from him. In particular, he liked to bully noobs. A large number of human warriors fell to the ground. The number of casualties was not too high, but all of them were severely injured. There were more than tens of thousands of them. He didn't hold back, but after he did it twice, the Orc Empire still paid a heavy price. A legendary orc was killed, but this also proved a problem. As long as he ate well enough, this natural god did not care who the enemy was. He only had one word: kill. At most, it was because the natural god was too sensitive to threats. He knew that killing too many humans would lead to danger, so he did not kill him. What was more important was he gradually realized that it was not that the natural god did not have feelings, but they were very weak. It took time to make him feel good about you. And with Taylor's unremitting efforts, he even did something extremely touching. That was when the natural god received the mineral vein. He took out half of the mineral vein and gave it to Taylor for him to eat. He said that he wanted his friend to become stronger. He was touched. Really. Taylor burst into tears at that moment. Hua hua. Gurti was completely relieved. He knew Taylor was the best way to tie up this natural god. Because no matter how he looked at it, this natural god only had Taylor as a friend. Maybe the natural god would not be loyal to the Orc Empire. But as long as Taylor was loyal enough, as long as the natural god recognized Taylor as a friend, and time would breed affection. He did not believe that this natural god would not belong to the Orc Empire after decades or centuries. So what if he was Shinto? As long as this natural god stood on the side of the orcs, he dared to let all the people of the Orc Empire worship him. They no longer looked at the Black Great Wall that had countless casualties. He glanced at Taylor and said in a deep voice, "Get along well with the natural god. Show him your sincerity. Our future depends not only on me, but also on him. My king, ever since he took out half of the mine for me to eat, I was already sincere. There will definitely be no mistakes," Taylor said in a low voice. This natural-born god had a lot of problems, but it gave him a feeling of pureness. Because becoming stronger and eating seemed to be the nature of this natural god. The orcs were also a very simple race. But the higher the rank, the higher the intelligence, and the harder it was for beasts to get along with each other. Now he only liked to be with the natural god, because only when he was with him could he feel the long-lost peace and security. Even if he had a lot of things in his heart, he would only tell this natural god. Because Taylor knew that this natural god, who lived in his home all year round, never talked to outsiders except when he was sleeping. The life of an orc was short. It was not easy to have a close friend. Far away in the Dawn Fortress, William, who heard Taylor's nagging every day, also sighed. "It's not easy for me. I just wanted to cheat you of some mineral veins, but I coax you all day like a child. Why are you talking so much to me? Especially when your affection for me has increased to 800 plus. What does that mean? You want to be with a natural god? Damn, you're a pervert." William was now a little doubtful about whether he had done the right thing. Originally, he only wanted the innate gods to be self-reliant and earn a living with their own abilities. In the end, he seemed to have the possibility of becoming a high-ranking member of the Orc Empire, even to become their faith. Damn it, he had been undercover for 3 years. If he didn't close the net, he would become the boss. Chapter 478. More than 3 years had passed. It was almost the 5th year of the version update. The 9 continents continued to move at a speed that normal people couldn't detect. Other than the extreme north of the legendary continent, there weren't many changes. Perhaps some small dukedoms annexed each other, or some races and tribes were destroyed, but these were trivial matters that weren't worth mentioning. There were changes everywhere. Only the border conflicts between the Red Fire Kingdom and the Desert Kingdom were getting more and more intense, and a war was about to break out. There was also the second, larger-scale darkness invasion. However, today was the day. All the powerful people in the legendary continent were looking at the extreme north, because the main attack against the Orc Empire was now. A year ago, the two races took down the Black Great Wall of the Orc Empire at the cost of more than 2 million soldiers' lives in 4 years. They also killed 15 million orcs. If not for the fact that both races had the habit of retrieving corpses, the extreme north would have been covered by countless frozen corpses. Even so, the corpses and bones could be seen everywhere. If ordinary people stepped into the war near the Black Great Wall, they would feel chills and endless murderous intents. There was an 80% chance that they would die of brain damage. Even a professional who wasn't very strong-willed could see the illusions of soldiers from both sides fighting on the battlefield alone. In short, those who weren't strong enough could only form teams or follow the army to resist the lingering murderous intents. However, they were taken down from the Black Great Wall. It was no longer a battlefield. Since then, the two sides had moved to the territory of the Orc Empire, and they fell into a year-long guerrilla war. Almost no war had a scale of more than 2 armies. Most of the wars were fought by dozens or hundreds of people. After all, the territory of the Orc Empire wasn't small. Other than the steel cities built on the icebergs, there were countless small tribes scattered around the Great Wall. These were the abandoned pawns that Gert had given up, and they were also the training grounds for the young human and elf warriors. However, everything would come to an end today. At this moment, the two races had deployed 3 million soldiers to the north of the endless Black Great Wall. Raising his head, he looked like a primordial dragon that was crawling on the ground, ready to burst forth with boundless might at any moment. This was a steel army. The lowest level was an advanced, and there were 800 epic professionals. This was the final battle, the battle that would decide everything. William was also among the 2 million people. However, he was standing on a city wall and was on the same level as many legendary big shots. The achievements of the Dawn Army under his command were enough for him to stand here. Not to mention that in the eyes of many people, he was already 26 years old and had already shown the potential to become a legend or even a saint, so it was not a big deal for him to stand here in advance. There were 2 saints in the center. The former was the Snow Elf King, Bernice, who was also known as the Ice Queen. The latter was Andre of Fury, the founder of the Ice Frost Empire, known as the Berserker. However, this war was led by the elves, so Bernice, the Snow Elf Queen, will be the supreme commander of this war. In fact, don't underestimate the title Supreme Commander. However, this also represented battle achievements and experience, as well as the great luck of the race that players could not come into contact with. Originally, when the Frost Empire sent out Andre, the founder of the Berserkers, he thought that this guy would be shameless enough to snatch the title of commander. After all, he was a berserker, quick to anger, liked to fight. However, as William had said, even the most arrogant man would be embarrassed to fight against a female expert of the same level. If it was a battle of words, he would not be a match for her. Andre dared to snatch the title of commander of this war. Bernice did not care about the queen's reputation. She scolded him for 7 days and 7 nights without taking a sip of water. It was obvious that the orcs would lose. Why did they send out 2 sages? Of course, it was because the humans and elves could not tolerate any accidents in this war. They did not want to see Gult plotting against them before he left and causing losses to their soldiers. This was the key reason why they came here. Otherwise, it would be enough for the legendary experts to preside over the final war. Because the enemies, there were no legendary experts. There were no epic experts. There were only a few people who were not favored by Gult. This war, there was no crushing defeat. It was just an unequal massacre. The humans and elves had all kinds of people from the sages to the advanced. The strongest orcs had some grandmasters, and there were not many grandmaster professionals. Perhaps there were some epic professionals who did not want to leave this land, but there were less than 10 of them. Even if there were 10 million orcs left in the Orc Empire, they were nothing in front of the 3 million orcs. Bernice glanced at the countless warriors below and calmly waved her hand. Swoosh! A figure that was thousands of meters tall appeared in the sky. Bernice. This figure was formed by countless ice and frost. It was as if it had a physical body. When the 2 million elves and humans saw her, they patted their chests in unison and said in unison, "Greetings, Ice Queen." The roar was like a shockwave that rushed in all directions. It was deafening. It was like the descent of a god. Bernice's figure that was thousands of meters tall had a vivid smile on it. In the next moment, the figure that was thousands of meters tall suddenly landed on the ground, leaving 2 huge footprints in the snow. Along with the earthquake, she pointed to the north and coldly said, "Destroy the country, destroy the country, destroy the country, destroy the country." The millions of soldiers roared in unison. The dark clouds in the sky understood the killing intent and retreated like a receding tide. The howling cold wind sensed the boundless battle intent and instantly dissipated like a puff of smoke. The killing intent soared into the sky. The fighting intent shocked the gods. Then, this million army was like a torrent of steel. With furious roars, they surged into the northernmost Orc Empire. Bernice's body that was thousands of meters tall turned into ice and snow and floated towards the north along with the countless warriors. It was a war between races with countless blood feuds. There was no such thing as mercy. William looked at this scene calmly. His heart did not waver. He did not need to attack. Over the past 3 years, he had fought in wars again and again. 8 epic beastmen and demons had died at his hands. But from then on, there were no more epic professions who came to die. Now, the remaining defeated soldiers did not need him to attack. The purpose of this war was to reduce the 10 million orcs to a few million, so that they would not be able to harm the 2 races, and they could be used. After all, under the premise that food and shelter were provided, it was enough to settle some blood feuds. Of course, the other purpose was to expel Gurt. He wanted him to not have any illusions about this land. He wanted him to bring the alternate dimension that belonged to the Orc paradise away from the extreme north. Or rather, to leave the legendary continent. As for where he would go, this had nothing to do with them. After all, there were many large islands in the endless sea. He could find an island and continue to live there. This war was not fair from the start. The difference in the number of sages between both sides was too great. Even if there were only elves, the Orc Empire would still lose. At most, they could hold on for a little longer, and Gort could be tougher. But with the participation of the humans from the Frost Empire, the balance was tilted too much. This was not like an empire with 10 sages attacking an empire with 5 sages. The latter had 5 sages to share the burden. Gort could not do anything alone. But when the orcs betrayed the gods' continent, they should have thought of this. They did not forgive the traitor. Only by being continuously squeezed by other races, squeezed and squeezed until this race was finally sent to the zoo to be watched as monkeys. Gort did not want the orcs of the legendary continent to waste his years of hard work. He had no choice but to compromise, cede land and pay reparations, swallow his anger, and even leave his homeland. As for what happened next, William would not be able to enjoy a share of the luck. The most he could do was to share the resources and land. Although the things that the Orc Empire could take, even the rare mineral veins, would be uprooted by the orcs. But the extreme north was too big. The Orc Empire was too big. Even if this land was a little barren, magic had recovered. Under the stimulation of 100 times the magic, many mineral veins were still being produced. There were more things that they could not move away, and there were too many resources in mineral veins that they had not discovered. In particular, the most important wealth in the extreme north was not the land that had been explored countless times by the Orc Empire. It was the 10,000 miles of ice field in the extreme north. The shoals of fish, sea beasts, and mineral veins in the icy seawater were inexhaustible. After all, there was no greenhouse climate in this world. On the ice field, it was very easy to build houses and cities on the ice that was as hard as steel. As long as one could get used to fishing, after the professionals cut open the ice cave, the ordinary people who were used to the extreme cold could still survive. Moreover, with the recovery of magic, everyone had the capital to become professionals. In addition, the professional strength allowed them to hold their breath for a longer period of time while diving. It was just colder and more battle energy was consumed. But the elves and the humans were eager for the ice field that they could not reach. This meant that they had more tricks up their sleeves. They might even have advanced technology like submarines. Especially with the ice field, it was equivalent to having a floating steel ship that could dive at any time and anywhere. After all, mages were also scientists of the major races. If this group of people who studied the truth did not spend most of their energy on training and magic runes, they might be able to become strong and rich through science and technology. William turned his head and looked at the pretty Annie. He smiled as he walked over and stroked her little head. "What's the matter? You'll be an adult in 4 years." Annie pulled his hand down and looked up at him. "Is that so?" William was enlightened. He leaned against the city wall and could not help but mutter, "It's been 10 years. I was only 16 years old then. You'll be an adult at 30 years old, but I'll be 40 years old." Annie hugged his arm uneasily and could not help but shake it. William pursed his lips. They were soft and perky. 10 years had passed, and this little girl had grown. She had a B+. No, she had probably reached B+. It was rare. Then he said, "What's there to be afraid of? You don't have to start a family when you're an adult." "But I'm worried." Annie sighed in frustration. She seemed to have thought of something and suddenly looked at him angrily. "I feel that there's something fishy going on between you and Moses." The corners of William's mouth twitched. She had a cat, but he did not know if there was something fishy going on. Anyway, he was familiar with the word fishy. Chapter 479. The third elder of the Blackleaf Elves and the second elder of the Moonlight Elves. They must be targeting the Snow Elves. Bernice could not figure out William's intentions. She knew that William was up to no good. William no longer hesitated. He said directly, "I want to exchange 8 million merit points for 200,000 elves from each of the 3 races." In addition, there were no legendary professionals who broke the rules in this legion. The Orc Empire had nothing to say. After all, elves did not represent items. In a war of genocide, there was no possibility of mercy. More than 10 million orcs died in the cities, forests, and ice plains. So I want to find some orcs to live with me. It took 4 months. The relationship between the humans, elves, and orcs was not good. It could be traced back to the mythological era. So it took 5 years. Yes. The second elder of the Moonlight Elves continued to suck up to William, because there were different opinions among the 3 elven races. He was left with 8 million merit points, even with the teleportation portal. But William did not have the time to fight with the Frost Empire and the 3 major elven races. He did not have the mood to use his trump card. The rewards of the mission were not small. In particular, the soldiers and civilians of the City of Dawn were used to living in subtropical areas. They were not used to it. William did not intend to forcibly transfer the population and soldiers. The former sighed and said, "As expected." William laughed and said, "Yes, I'm not interested in divine weapons, sacred weapons, or some strategic treasures. Actually, yes, when the Orc Empire was completely defeated, only 3 million orc captives were left. It was better to use slaves than their own people for mining. They failed. But after he completed this SSS-level war mission, his personal combat power soared again. In the conference room yesterday. But so what? It was okay for William to be ambitious. But William wanted to exchange for 200,000 elves to follow him back to the City of Dawn. Was it really that easy? Many conspiracies and tricks could be used against him. So he did not intend to divide the land and participate in this chaotic war. Other than the merit points, the City of Dawn had sent more than 200,000 regular soldiers to this battlefield. In the battlefield in the extreme north, they had killed many enemies and made many contributions, unless one used some divine artifact to deduce it. Annie was the princess of the Moonlight Elves. The 2 of them might be connected by marriage. Sending 200,000 elves as a dowry was not a big deal. But the Snow Elves are not related to you in any way. The standard of living in the City of Dawn is even better. The Snow Elves used to live on the World Tree, so they should be used to living in the City of Dawn. What was William trying to do? Not to mention whether he could snatch it or not. Even if he could, he did not have enough people to place them here. If he could place them here, he might have to continue arguing with the other four parties. However, when the orcs betrayed the gods' continent and became the vanguard of the Dark World, the situation became a blood feud. William was a Blackleaf elf, and the Blackleaf elves had no interest in investing in him, according to their expectations. Even if there were people who thought highly of him, his current status and strength were not enough. William and Queen Bernice were discussing how to divide the spoils of war. He could take at least two. What about the City of Dawn? But he chose the future. After all, Milady Queen knows that I've always treated my clansmen well. Bernice narrowed her eyes. Bernice did not want to speak. The strategy of using merit points was planned by the leaders of the three major elven clans. The resources and treasures that could be exchanged were also provided by the three major elven clans. The Blackleaf elves had invested 400,000 elves in the City of Dawn. The Moonlight elves had also given away 200,000 elves because of Annie. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that William not only wanted to recruit elves to work for him, but he also wanted to slowly devour the three elven clans. There was no option to exchange merit points for the elves. William wanted to become the king of the three elven clans in the legendary continent. However, the City of Dawn was not just a single person. It was not a legion, but a power. The queen had a broader view. In her eyes, the size of the land was the most important. Perhaps they would lose a portion of their clansmen, but to the three elven clans that numbered in the tens of millions, it would not be a serious blow. He was not qualified. Oh, Bernice heaved a sigh of relief. The queen, who thought that she would feel bad for William, quickly said, "What do you want? I'll try my best to satisfy you." After all, in order to ensure that the low-level professionals would not be slaughtered by the epic professionals, the 800 epic professionals in the army were not to be trifled with. Basically, if an epic orc dared to appear, he would be besieged by a few or even a dozen epic experts. The key was whether he had the ability to do so. Then he would fail. But if William really wanted to exchange, every time the Snow Elves held an internal meeting, William would be mentioned the most when they talked about the geniuses in their race. Furthermore, the elves and humans did not intend to kill all of them. In other words, they were afraid that Gewer would give up. However, the combat power of the City of Dawn had not improved by much. Think about it. Humph. Bernice sneered. No one knew what she was thinking. The third elder of the Blackleaf clan shrugged and said helplessly, "It's not a loss no matter what. Our clansmen have not suffered much in the City of Dawn, and our lives are quite leisurely, especially the warriors. The quality of their armor and weapons is not inferior to our clansmen's. But they were all divine and sacred weapons. Although they were not the treasures of the clansmen, they were very rare and almost extinct. At this moment, the Orc Empire, which had almost no defensive capabilities, was completely annihilated. It had completely disappeared in the long history of the legendary continent. This was something that was used to seduce people. It was something that one could not obtain even if they drooled over it. But in the end, someone had obtained so many merit points. It was like a little girl playing a badger game. She was going to be forced to do it. Some epic orcs who came out to cause trouble were also defeated by the tens of thousands of cavalry. Ever since the general attack at the extreme north began, a total of 6 million merit points were obtained by this super legion that had been victorious in every battle. What was needed was external pressure and real hard power to overthrow it and reform it. After His Royal Highness left, after William finished speaking, he did not say anything else. He calmly waited for a reply. A sage wanted to run away. Bernice felt that something was wrong. He looked like he was up to no good. Bernice didn't hesitate too much. She chuckled and said, "Sure. Although the mineral loads you asked for are almost 1/5 of the remaining mineral loads in the Orc Empire, your military exploits are more than enough for you to distribute them." She could not say that. It was too much. William was almost drooling. 3 mithril mines, 2 adamantium mines, 2 orichalca mines, 8 copper mines, 6 iron mines, and 2 gold mines. Yes, I want these. I don't want a piece of land. I'll leave after excavating. But I want 500,000 orc miners. After all, they did not intend to perish together. This was not something that the Elfin King could change. Bernice saw that the two of them were hesitating. They could not help but laugh. She coldly snorted and said, "Do the two races think so highly of him? What do you want?" Bernice cautiously glanced at William. The most expensive item on the merit point list was not more than 3 million. However, it was a little difficult, but William had the habit of poaching, taking people away. "Yes, thank you for your generosity, Your Majesty." William nodded and turned to leave. William knew that Bernice would not reject him, so he continued, "Besides the merit points that I've exchanged, I still have 8 million merit points left. What does Your Majesty think I should exchange for?" "I'm so angry. You're talking about the young genius of the snow elves. William is not a snow elf. Why do you keep mentioning him?" Bernice thought for a while and suddenly said, "I'll think about it with the other two high-level elves. You can go back first." He did not want the battle line of the City of Dawn to be too far away. What should I do? Fulfill his wish? Every stronghold that the orcs tried to defend was covered in white bones and rivers of blood. It was a huge loss, besides the 2 million merit points that had been exchanged in recent years. TSK. With the recovery of magic, there would be an endless supply of resources from the mines in the future. But the hatred would not lead to the extermination of the entire race. As for where Gerd had taken the other 8 million orcs, no one knew. Even if a legendary professional intervened and broke the rules, he would only be able to obtain less than 1 million merit points. He was already a mature lord of a neutral faction. Especially the indestructible Dragonblood Legion. It was like a reaper on the battlefield. William hurriedly said, "Your Majesty, you should know that I grew up in the Dark Knight City. I think I'm a pure-blooded elf. But I have too few elves. I've been living in the City of Dawn for a long time and haven't seen any elves, so I feel that I'm not an elf." He not only wanted to become the Blackleaf Elven King. The representatives of the four factions were arguing about how to distribute the large land area of the Orc Empire and the icy plains in the north. It was not something that could be stopped by a few sages. It was extremely difficult to deduce the whereabouts of a sage. William's path was smooth sailing. The 3 elven tribes could invest in him. If he succeeded, the 3 elven tribes would become existences that were not weaker than the human empires. William looked into Bernice's eyes and said, this group of people did not treat him like a child anymore. William's 8 million merit points could be used to exchange for more practical resources and equipment. It was enough to upgrade the City of Dawn by a few levels. All right, I'll give it to him. I'll see how far he can grow. After saying this, Bernice turned and left. It wasn't easy to kill a saint without an overwhelming force. But William did not expect Bernice to be so ambitious. 2 legendary professionals had appeared behind Bernice. Chapter 480. What was a reward for completing a super mission that took 5 years? Prompt. You have completed the contract with the elves. Your mission completion rate is 180%. Prompt. You have obtained Endowment Upgrade Card X1. Prompt. You have obtained the item Wisdom Water 3000. Prompt. You have obtained the Legendary Continent's Legend Level +2. Lord of Dawn. Prompt. Your affinity with the 3 elves has increased to 23,500 points. Prompt. You have obtained 8 billion experience points Endowment Upgrade Card. William's eyes lit up. He really needed the Endowment Upgrade Card. Ever since he had advanced to the epic level, he realized that his defense was not invincible. Violent Dragon, Meng Lu, and other muscular giants had higher defenses than him. They could even defend against a large amount of true damage. What would he do about it? What? Did they think that he did not rely on meat to make a name for himself? He was about to lose his advantage, so he used the Endowment Upgrade Card on his diamond body. Oh, what will the diamond body be in the future? Indestructible golden body, or something else? William kept the Endowment Upgrade Card and did not upgrade it. Instead, he looked at the legendary status of the continent. Legend level of the Lord of Dawn +2. Restriction. This legendary status is only effective on the legendary continent. Description. The Lord of the City of Dawn is the legendary Lord of Dawn. He will bring hope to his friends, and he will bring destruction to his enemies. Description. The legendary Lord of Dawn is handsome and has unparalleled good looks. Many women would be proud to see him. But he has millions of soldiers and is the executioner of the Orc Empire. He can lead his soldiers from the southernmost part of the legendary continent to the farthest north to participate in the war. He has brought great losses to the Orc Empire. Description: the Lord of Dawn is a powerful and neutral lord. According to the records of the Frost Empire and the Elves, his soldiers have killed at least 5 million orcs. Sentimental note: your handsome appearance is widely known and will attract the attention of many women. But at the same time, your characteristic of killing is enough to stop children from crying at night. TSK. I admit that I'm handsome, but if you say that I'm a murderer, then you're too mischievous. I didn't do much. It was my subordinates who killed them. It has nothing to do with me. William grinned. How should he put it? Legendary status was like a materialized persona. So far, he already had 5 Continental level legend points, which was a great bonus to his reputation. And as long as a little more time passed, in a legendary continent where there were bards, the professionals would more or less know 5 things or 5 characteristics about themselves. Anyway, William Blackleaf was no longer a simple name. He was a celebrity. Basically, no matter where he went, people would look up to him. Now, His Royal Highness could not only use his face, but also his name. What was this called? If his looks and fame blossomed at the same time, then his bragging would be over. Next, William looked at the 3,000 grams of wisdom water. Bottled. Wisdom water, quality, legendary. Produce, world tree. Effect: randomly activates the endowment of a magical professional. Effect: has a high probability of increasing the bloodline level of a magical professional. Effect: 1,000 grams of wisdom water increases intelligence by 100 points. Limit: maximum increase of 500 points of intelligence. It's this thing? William's eyes lit up. It was also a treasure produced by the World Tree. Even though the effect was not as obvious as the life potion, in a sense, it was more precious and rarer than the life potion. After all, the effect was obvious. Randomly activating an endowment could also increase the bloodline level of a magical professional. This was definitely awesome. Besides its main body, what else could the World Tree produce? He remembered that there seemed to be Magic Spring, Wisdom Spring, and Life Spring. In short, after obtaining the World Tree, it was no different from having an endless source of super treasures. It was no wonder that the elves could become the overlords in the Second Era. Who should I give the items of a magical professional to? William thought for a while, and thought of Sia first. She was a long-legged and beautiful truth mage. William could still remember that when he woke up after transmigrating, the first person he saw was Sia, because her characteristics were too outstanding. The young lady who had just pushed open the door didn't even come in, but her twin peaks had already entered the room. At that time, he was dumbfounded. She was also the one who stuffed a bottle of life potion into his hand. She wanted him to drink it quickly, as she was afraid that someone from the Dark Knight Kingdom would come and snatch it away. William had not forgotten about Sia after so many years. It was just that she was a truth mage. Sia was too obsessed with magic. Everything could be related to magic. Ever since William kept Little Black, Sia had been clamoring for him to give her dragon blood and dragon scales as materials. Fortunately, William had other dragon blood and dragon scales to send her away. Otherwise, it would be difficult for him to reject her. However, Sia had become much more stable recently. Ever since Moses had built the magic tower, she had been completely immersed in the laboratory of the magic tower. She often did not come out for 1 or 2 months. She was a proper magical homebody. Then I'll leave it to Sia. Anyway, there aren't many magical professionals who are on good terms with me. William rubbed his nose. Most of his subordinates were close combat professionals. They were all muscular, and there were no pure mages. Even if there were magical professionals, most of them were supportive, and they were similar to William. Moses didn't need that either. Any one of her talents represented the potential of a saint. If she took out 3 to 5 talents, she would basically be a transcendent genius. As for Old Band, he only had epic bloodline, but the wisdom water might not be able to improve his bloodline. In addition, Old Band had become an epic professional. If he wanted to improve his bloodline, it would be better to use the blood fruit instead of the wisdom water. Finally, William took out the endowment upgrade card and tested it on good looks. It was a pity. There was still a restriction that prevented him from upgrading it. Do I have to wait until I become legendary before I can upgrade again? William scratched his head. He was a little puzzled. Then he tapped on Diamond Body. Swish! The endowment upgrade card disappeared. His body could not help but shine brightly. Electric arcs flowed on the surface of his body. It was dazzling. His aura became stronger, and it gave off a strong sense of oppression. William could clearly feel that his bones, flesh, and even the beginner elemental body had changed. In general, it was more like the evolution of the essence of life. He could not help but moan in pleasure. But William did not know that if he slashed himself, he would see the shining golden bones. In the future, if he became so poor that he went bankrupt, he could cut off a piece of his bone and sell in kilograms. He could probably sell it for a good price. Prompt: your endowment diamond body has been upgraded to invincible diamond body. Endowment: invincible diamond body. 1 physical strength equals 3 defense points. Your defense will increase by an additional 1,000 points. Your maximum health points will increase by 30,000 points. Most of the damage done by enemies will be reduced by 20%. True damage done by enemies will be reduced by 40%. Most of the buffs done by enemies will be reduced by 30%. The effect and duration of the buffs will be reduced by 30%. Your health points will be increased by an additional 500 points. So powerful! William looked at the upgraded invincible diamond body and could not help but gulp. Putting everything else aside, just the series of effects and attributes were worthy of the name Invincible Vajra Body. When he was naked, his body's defense value was already more than 6,000 points. In addition, normal damage was reduced by 20%, true damage was reduced by 40%, and there were a lot of weakening effects. He had once again entered the peak of the epic level as a tank. In particular, his health points would be increased by an additional 500 points. This would allow him to recover 1,500 health points per second. It was simply insane. One had to know. This did not include the Heart of Thunder's special effect of recovering 4% of health points after being beaten. Let me calculate. 1 is 1, 2 is 4, 3 is 6. If someone beats me, I will recover 10,000 plus health points. William grinned. He was a ranger. Did you know that a ranger's health points were low? After all, William rarely added points to his physical strength, but his defense was high. His health points were fast. He had a total of 200,000 health points. If he was beaten, he could recover 1/20th of his health points. Let me ask you, are you afraid? Who the hell can withstand this? The prince took a deep breath. This wasn't even counting the innate gift of immortality. It was simple. At this moment, he had finally entered the strongest stage of the epic level. He was not bragging. If he fought with the Thunder God now, even if he could not win, he would not be defeated. He did not want to be worried about being beaten to death. Now, even if he stood still and let the Thunder God beat him for a day, he would not die. Because he knew that no matter how powerful an epic professional was, even if he had the combat power of a higher level, he would not be able to kill him in a short period of time. It's a pity. If I could obtain this skill before the epic title conference, I would definitely fight for first place. I always end up in a draw. It's enough to discuss the reincarnations of the gods. William was a little disappointed, but it did not matter. There was still room for him to perform. There were 13 days left until the end of the version update. The second round of Darkness Invasion was about to occur. The Red Fire Kingdom and the Desert Kingdom were about to go to war, and the Dragon Rebellion was about to occur. This version of the game did not only last for 1 year. It lasted for 3 years. In these 3 years, it was definitely time for him to show his strength and expand crazily. Forget about the Darkness Invasion. The City of Dawn was no longer the main target of the Dark World. In the second round of Darkness Invasion, the strongest was only an epic devil. The City of Dawn could not defeat it. But the second Darkness Invasion was the time to make a fortune. The City of Dawn had millions of players. Not only could they make a fortune, but they could also preserve the vitality of some small human nations. As for the war between the two nations, After William won, he would expand his power to the west and get close to the dwarfs. Then, he could think of ways to help Odin take revenge. He could even help Odin ascend to the throne of the dwarfs. Of course, the most important thing was the Dragon Rebellion. Although the unlucky ones were small duchies, grand duchies, and kingdoms. But William could still take the opportunity to kill a few dragons. Otherwise, he could make use of the opportunity to befriend the dragons. Anyway, the next version would be the crucial time for him to establish a foothold in the legendary continent. It might even be the time for him to become a legendary. Version 4.0. The Fourth Era, the beginning of the Endless War. From this version onwards, the chaotic war in the gods' continent would never stop. Because from this moment onwards, regardless of whether one wanted to become the Lord of the Fourth Era, one would be dragged into the vortex of war until the Lord of the Fourth Era appeared. Chapter 481. 3 days after William obtained the invincible Vajra body, the 200,000 soldiers of the City of Dawn finally returned to their hometown from the extreme north. His Royal Highness also gave them a 10-day holiday. William looked at the happy faces of this group of warriors. He really wanted to tell them that perhaps these 10 days of vacation would be their last 10 days of vacation. After version 4.0, it would be the beginning of the Infinite War. From then on, there would be very few opportunities to rest. In other words, there would not be such a long holiday. At most, they would take a short break during the war. In addition, the City of Dawn was a neutral faction. It was a diversified mercenary legion that relied on war to survive. They would definitely not give up on these opportunities. In conclusion, when encountering difficulties, one had to face them head-on. If there were no difficulties, one had to create them. Even if there were no more employment missions, William, would go around and create missions. Meanwhile, the City of Dawn welcomed another 600,000 elves. There were 200,000 Blackleaf, Moonlight, and Snow Elves. There were both males and females. Until now, the huge City of Dawn had a population of 5 million. In addition to the population of EC City, Greenlight City, Stormy City, and the Bee Citadel, William's population had reached 11 million. It was comparable to a human kingdom. 1 million of them were elves. Although William did not deliberately recruit half-elves, because of his status as a half-elf lord, many half-elves came from afar. 10 years passed. A total of 1.5 million half-elves sought refuge with him. The population of the Serafkin was small. There were only a few 100,000 of them. The number of dwarfs was also small. After adding them, there were only 60,000 to 70,000 of them. The rest were all humans. The City Lord's mansion in the City of Dawn was still the same. It was only a 3-story building. As there were not too many tall houses, it was the most beautiful building. Except for the Magic Tower. William stood on the balcony and looked down at the streets. Most of the pedestrians were smiling happily. Many soldiers who were on vacation were accompanying their families and children to shop. William looked for a long time and suddenly pondered. The City of Dawn has a total of 700,000 regular soldiers. Among them, there are 200,000 veterans, advanced, grandmaster, 200,000 new recruits, intermediate, and 300,000 reserve legions, beginner. As for the Dawn Mercenary Legion, there are 280,000 of them. Their fighting spirit isn't that strong, but the weakest of them is an intermediate professional. Most of them are on missions in the southern region. Currently, the City of Dawn has an army of 1 million soldiers. But as the size of the legion increases, a problem has arisen. There aren't enough low-level officers and legion commanders. William sighed. The legion commander not only required combat power, but also the ability to lead troops into battle. The importance of basic officers was self-evident. They were like the components of a large machine. The larger the scale of the army, the more components needed, and the more precise they were. As such, one could imagine how many precise parts would be needed to operate such a huge machine. The combat power of the Dawn Army was not to be underestimated. However, under certain circumstances, professionals with high combat power were not necessarily good at leading armies. But I've already made preparations. William laughed mischievously. What had the Battle Energy College and the Magic College done? This was equivalent to the Huangpu Military Academy. These two colleges had only been established for 6 years. But the City of Dawn had been recruiting students crazily, and William had plundered them. Now, there were 100,000 students. Not only did they have to learn how to fight, but they also had to learn how to lead troops in a battle, form alliances, and scheme. William had some ideas about the future Legion model. It was no longer a legion of 3,000 soldiers. Instead, it was 5,000 soldiers. Every legion had to have a legion commander. He did not have to be very good at fighting, but he could not be too weak either. At least, he had to be able to control the soldiers in the legion. There were also 3 deputy legion commanders. The first one had to fight frequently. He could be even fiercer than the legion commander. He was commonly known as a boorish man or a fierce general. The other deputy legion commander was good at scheming. He was a staff officer and a military counselor. He was responsible for helping the legion commander to come up with strategies. This was to prevent the legion commander from having to work hard alone. After a few years, his hairline would reach the top of his head. William had always suspected that Zhuge Liang was wearing a wig because he was not bald at such an old age. The third deputy legion commander was a mage. He was responsible for checking the weather and geography. He was responsible for calculating all the factors that made sense for the legion to go into battle. Secondly, this legion also needed a team of at least 300 mages. The third mage deputy legion commander was responsible for setting up a large-scale enhancement magic array for the legion. They could also be used as the backline to attack. They could not only be used as support, but they could also be used as a critical trump card. More importantly, when there was no good timing, geography, and manpower, this group of mages had to make use of the limited terrain and number of people to create the right timing, geography, and manpower for the legion. After all, mages were mages. Although low-level mages were not good at one-on-one battles, as long as the mages were given a certain amount of time, the destructive power they created was often much stronger than a battle energy professional. For example, poisoning the river, spending a few years to set up a magic array, summoning something, and so on, could often cause great damage to a small city. The prerequisite was that the mages needed time. When a large group of mages gathered together, their combat power would soar. The configuration of the legion was still the same as before. It was just that the number had increased. There were 1,500 shield warriors, 1,500 warriors, 1,700 rangers, and 300 mages. Of course, this was the configuration of a regular legion. As for the cavalry legion and the artillery legion, they were counted separately. Thinking of this, William immediately summoned the people in charge of the 2 colleges. After asking a few questions, he muttered, "Among the first batch of students, 1355 have become advanced professionals. Yes, Your Highness. They have 9 years of compulsory education. They have studied in the college for 6 years and are 3 years away from graduation. But now, many young fellows are clamoring to join the army. They intend to contribute to the City of Dawn." The deputy principal of the Battle Energy College was very emotional. When the students of the City of Dawn had first arrived, some of them had the thought of becoming professionals and going out to explore. But after a few years of brainwashing, and with William's help, they basically did not have such thoughts anymore. Or rather, they no longer had such thoughts. They treated the City of Dawn as their home. Every one of them treated Prince William as their idol. That's good. Let all 1,355 students become interns. No, 9 years of compulsory education, 6 years of study, and 3 years of internship. The first batch of students will all join the army. William narrowed his eyes. That's right. Discuss with the Legion leaders and arrange for them to be low-level officials in the Legion. If there are students who perform exceptionally well, they can also become deputy Legion leaders. This suggestion seemed to make some Legion leaders unhappy. After all, the City of Dawn was getting bigger and bigger. Some factions had formed. Burn Cinder and Diablo were from the warrior faction. Little Angel Xian was from the Seraphican faction. Deputy City Lord Odom was from the Dwarves faction. Violent Dragon and Meng Lu were from the Meat Shield faction. Old Band did not have a faction. but the mages vaguely formed a large faction with Moses as their leader. There were also Alec, Eric, Diablo, and so on. The factions were very complicated and numerous, but everyone's hearts were as clear as a mirror. The students from the two academies were all feudal lord acolytes, emperor's disciples, so they could not refuse. At most, when they made a mistake, they would report the military situation and have them change positions. But there was one thing. William's endowment of being handsome was too awesome. Even if there were conflicts between the factions, they would not fight to the death like the other factions. Every faction would want to kill someone, and there would be countless conspiracies and tricks. At most, if you couldn't complete the mission, they would suppress you and support their own faction's people to take the top spot. But they would not support the students when they should. They would watch the students die. In this way, the fights between certain factions would become a virtuous cycle. It would save those students from being naive, as if they had never been in society before. The vice dean of the Battle Spirit Academy nodded. Suddenly, he could not help but say, "Prince William, among the first batch of students, there are 9 outstanding students. Some of them have become grandmasters or are about to become grandmasters." When they heard this, the vice dean of the Magic Academy could not help but frown. Yes, their growth speed is too fast. Of course, this has to do with the abundance of magic in the City of Dawn and the resurgence of magic. But now that they have reached our level, it's hard to control them. William waved his hand. "Don't worry. Soon, Old Band will officially become the dean of the Magic Academy. Old Leather has reached the epic level, so he will officially become the dean of the Battle Spirit Academy. They will not roam around." That's good. The 2 epic experts will definitely be able to suppress them. The 2 deputy deans breathed a sigh of relief. They were both guru professions. They could suppress students who had entered the advanced ranks, but they couldn't control students who were also gurus. But more importantly, the 2 deputy deans were in a lot of pain. They did not know why there were so many geniuses in the Magic Academy. Basically, any ordinary student in the Battle Spirit Academy or the Magic Academy would be a genius. But in the City of Dawn, they felt like they were commonplace. William frowned. He knew what the 2 vice deans were thinking, but he had no choice. There were 100,000 students in the 2 academies. He had used millions of insight to throw them out and pick them up one by one. What? The lowest level was an intermediate bloodline? Sorry, ever since the second wave of magic resurgence, this group of young fellows basically had advanced bloodlines. How many students in the 2 academies had legendary bloodlines? Before the second wave of magic resurgence, there were 18 of them. After the magic resurgence, there were 26 of them. That was right. Let's not talk about these fellows. There were hundreds of students with epic bloodlines. They would be geniuses in other academies. Not to mention the geniuses with legendary bloodlines. So far, there were only 15 professionals who worked under William in the City of Dawn who had legendary bloodlines. Even though they had legendary bloodlines, it did not mean that they would definitely become legendary. But there were many of them. Out of these 41 people, at least a dozen of them would become legendary professions in the future. The first batch of 9 students with legendary bloodlines had mostly broken through to the Grandmaster level. Some of them were even on the verge of breaking through. Things were different now. The magic density in the gods' world was 100 times higher than before. Their training speed had also increased by several folds. William started to reform the Dawn Army while he waited for the arrival of the players. He wanted to let the players see a brand new City of Dawn. Chapter 482. Time flew. William's life had come to an end. He had survived the 5 years of the version update. But to him, it was 5 years. But to many players, each version update only lasted for 5 hours. Even if they died, it would not exceed 10 hours. As a result, many players did not even need to leave their gaming capsules. They could change their games and play for a while. After the version update, they could enter the game immediately and start doing it. 10, 9, 8, 3, 2, 1. Version update has ended. All players, please enjoy the arrival of version 4.0, the 4th era, the beginning of the endless war at this moment. tens of millions of players around the world felt their vision darken. Once again, William saw beams of white light descending from the sky and transforming into human figures. Newbies, newbies, let me touch them. A group of organized players rushed towards a group of newbies and tried to touch their chests. A group of young ladies with big breasts and beautiful legs in newbie attire screamed and called them hooligans. Come on, don't run, don't run. I'll touch yours too. Conconger, a lady who weighed more than 150 kilograms, could not reduce her weight even though she had beautified her body. When a chest-touching person passed by, she gave him a bear hug and could not break free in a short period of time. Oh, let go. Help, help. There's a tank here. I don't want to press F. Of course, the former was the minority. Although most of the young ladies felt excited, they would still scream and feel disgusted. Not only did the number of chest-touching people not decrease, but there are more and more of them. D***M in it. Many players cursed, but there was a trace of envy in their eyes. However, they still had to pretend to be gentlemen. It was time for the hero to save the beauty. It was a pity. After the chest-touching people came out, a group of well-organized and disciplined people also came out. They did not care that they were in the main city. Before the beautiful guards with long legs appeared, they quickly attacked. This caused many unorganized and undisciplined players who wanted to be the hero to save the beauty to draw their swords and look around. They were a loss and were dumbfounded. They secretly cursed this group of people for attacking too quickly. Many calmer players did not notice this. They only sighed and said, there are 9 kilograms of online games in the world, and the gods take up 3 kilograms. It must be this group of bastards. This lousy game was already hard enough to play, but there were still so many bored people. Many girls and newbies were chased away, which made many male players very angry. However, the City of Dawn only had a group of intermediate players and novice players. Most of the players were either in the Dawn Fortress or in the various fortresses in the extreme north. As soon as they were born, they heard a notification. The SSS rank Elven contract mission had been completed. The members of Prosperous Millennium gathered together. The leader, forever alone, cursed, "It's been 5 years. It's been 5 years. The Dawn Fortress doesn't belong to the City of Dawn. The war is over. What have we missed? Captain, if you calculate it carefully, you'll definitely lose so much that you won't even have your underwear left." Shut up, I know. In the Glory Club, Changli Joga looked at the final achievement points that had yet to be calculated and the rewards that had yet to be distributed. It seemed that only the experience points had been transferred to his account. A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. Prince William, this little hussy, had not caused the City of Dawn to fail. It was unbelievable. However, he still scratched his head in puzzlement. Logically speaking, isn't this our main mission? Even if we don't have it, we can still end it. What's the point of playing? Who told you that this is our main mission? Our main mission was written in the version update. Bright red blood, vampires. Chu Yochio scratched his sparse hair. The Overlord shampoo was not working. The more he used it, the more hair he would lose. Xiao Ian gave him an expression that said, "You're right. But where are we going now?" The City of Dawn. I just took a look at the Dawn Forum. The version guide mission has appeared. Chu Yochio yawned. He had recently gotten a girlfriend, so he was not very energetic. Kidney deficiency. When he went out for skewers at night, he should eat 20 kidney skewers to replenish his energy. Hence, the Frost Empire and the elves in the extreme north saw the millions of chosen ones. They arrived at the Snow Elves' capital city like a swarm of locusts. Without any reluctance, they teleported to the City of Dawn. But what was even more shocking was that, according to their calculations, William didn't know when the chosen ones would arrive. He didn't even arrange for anyone to welcome them here. However, these chosen ones were still very loyal. They didn't care how the Orc Empire was defeated, and they had no interest in understanding what was inside the Orc Empire. TSK, TSK. Didn't William say that the chosen ones are a bunch of wild orphans who don't know loyalty? I don't think so. Great Enchanter Keelan had finally escaped from the abyss of misery in the Snow Elves' capital city. The Snow Elf Queen treated him as a juicer. She made him teach her 50 years of experience and knowledge in 5 years. The asterisk M in it. He was a salted fish. He was a salted fish who was immersed in time. He felt very tired. But when he saw this scene, he was slightly surprised. He did not expect the City of Dawn to be so attractive to these players. Who knows? But the Empire has no intention of poaching them. They want to wait and see. Keelan nodded. Now, all the forces with sages had the same intention. He said, it's good to wait. If the Empires want to recruit these chosen ones, the City of Dawn will not be able to stop them. It was a pity that they did not know. There were 3 versions of the game. The City of Dawn was still standing strong because William had completed 3 versions of the game. It was not as easy as they had imagined for the City of Dawn to break away from the game. Unless they recruited new players, there was still a chance. But it was not that easy to poach the veteran players. This was because the players were tied to the City of Dawn. In some ways, the players in the City of Dawn were bound together. Hence, they had to mention the word glory. It had to be known. The warriors in the God's continent were willing to sacrifice their lives for the glory of the Lord, the King, and the warriors. Were they stupid, or were they not smart enough? It was neither. This was their collective sense of glory. Even if they were players who only cared about benefits, as long as you had enough time with them, you could keep many players under certain circumstances. The prerequisite was that the City of Dawn was not destroyed. The rewards from the various missions were still dazzling. They did not have the time to think about changing factions. The army of players appeared in the City of Dawn again. There were more than 6 million of them. Only a few 100,000 players were scattered in other factions. But it had to be said that William had expected this. This super large city with 5 million permanent residents was actually built according to the scale of 10 million people. Even if so many players suddenly integrated into the city, there would not be a situation where the streets would be crowded and there would be groups of people touching breasts. The veteran players of the extreme north returned. The main street of the City of Dawn was once again occupied by the players. The new forces in version 2, 0 and 3, 0 could not resist them, including the players of the Moon and Mars. They could only squat at the side angrily. After all, most of the players who had appeared in version 1, 0 had become advanced professionals. They could not defeat them, especially when they stood on the street and activated the special effects of their equipment. It was incomparable. The dazzling golden, dark golden, orange, and dark purple lights attracted the newbies. After all, every version update would attract a group of players and new missions. This was an opportunity to recruit people on a large scale. The major guilds would not let go of this opportunity. But Chongli Jyoga and the other professional players did not have to appear personally. When they returned to the City of Dawn, they received a mission notification. The brand new City of Dawn. Under the leadership of William Blackleaf, the City of Dawn has rapidly expanded in the past 5 years. The millions of soldiers under his command have been invincible. In the war against the Orc Empire, they have obtained great military achievements. But more than 100,000 soldiers have died on the battlefield. This has led to many broken families in the City of Dawn. The chosen ones who have disappeared for 5 years. Please find a suitable gift for these poor families. Mission objective. These tens of thousands of families have different wishes. These wishes are marked on the gifts. Mission hint. These gifts were personally prepared by Prince William. They are hidden in the City of Dawn, Stormy City, Greenlight City, the East Sea Metropolis, and the Bee City. Mission reward? Oh, the reward doesn't seem to be much. At most, it's some experience or equipment. It's very boring. Some players yawned. They were not very interested in this guide mission. But there are many female players with more emotional selves. They were naturally very touched, especially when they saw that the gifts were personally prepared by William. Their admiration for William was at its peak. The image of their Prince William became more and more vivid in their hearts. At this moment, many players had found these gifts on the forum. They were not too precious. For example, some small gift boxes were filled with food. There was a note on the box that said that these were the favorite snacks of a child of a soldier who had died in the war. He could not bear to buy them and rarely ate them. There were also wooden swords, shields, bicycles, and even the admission certificate of the Battle Energy College. In short, These gifts were not too precious. But just like what William had said, these gifts were prepared for these families. They were the small wishes of these families. But after reading these posts, most of the replies were tearful. They were crying. The war was too merciless, and they were very pitiful. Of course, although they were touched, the war still had to be fought. The players were only moved by the civilians of the City of Dawn. My God, now I know that Prince William not only has the looks of an immortal, but he also has the kindest heart in the world. I can imagine the scene of Prince William taking care of those children. Someone posted and drew many pictures of William taking care of the children, touching the head, hugging the little boy, and spinning around, putting pictures of flowers on the little girl's head. On the second floor, a cute little fairy said, "It's useless no matter what you say. Prince William is my man. Draw your sword, sisters." On the third floor, Chongli Jyoga said, "It's useless no matter what you say. Prince William is my man. Draw your sword, sisters." Then, there were many replies below Chongli Jyoga's post. *MN 500 plus affinity points. You pervert. Hurry up and practice your skills. If you don't become the champion in this version, I'll flame you to death. Repeater, you've exposed your human nature. Coo. Anyway, besides a few haters, the forum of the City of Dawn was very cheerful. Not only did the City of Dawn not decline, but it had also become stronger. At the same time, this thriving city was filled with humanity. It did not have the cold feeling of the other factions, especially His Royal Highness's kindness. Too many people were touched by this. The players entered the temporarily free teleportation portal and went to look for the gifts. Of course, some people thought that this was the doing of the higher-ups. It was a pity. Conspiracy theories did not work in the City of Dawn. In this world, those who had the face to travel the world could not do anything without it. If anyone dared to say bad things about William on the forum, the moderator would ban them. They might even hang up their posts and beat them. It was guaranteed that a group of bootlickers would rush out and scold them until they could not take care of themselves. What was more important was the forum name was the same as the game ID. Some people who bore grudges could kill people in the game, even if they could not hack through the internet. Moreover, the ladies were rich. Once a bounty was posted, a group of assassins with colorful battle energy would find trouble with them. It was very annoying. Prince William looked at the happy faces of the players. He stroked his chin and yawned. Enjoy this happy time. You'll be busy soon. As for the missions that he had arranged, it was what the schemers had said. It was a method to attract people's hearts. But it was not a big deal, even if the schemers saw through it. More importantly, this kind of mission could strengthen the relationship between the players and the City of Dawn. The players would not want to leave the City of Dawn. They would even fight for the adorable children in the City of Dawn. He had no choice. He had tricked them. So what? Subsequently, he looked at Lancelot's transmitted message. 1 month later, the second darkness invasion will begin. The human empires and kingdoms do not dare to attack. They are afraid that the scale of the darkness invasion will expand and lead to a full-scale war. The City of Dawn can attack. Of course, the Temple of Light will do the same. William did not reply. He sighed in his heart. The darkness invasion had lasted for a year. The strongest devil had reached the epic level. But this was the simplest wave of the darkness invasion. The third time, it would be a full-scale invasion. Or rather, it would be a continuous invasion. It would not be an intermittent invasion. But no matter what, the second wave of the darkness invasion was very simple. William did not know how long the dark creatures could last if the City of Dawn attacked. I only hope that there will be more of you. After all, there are more and more players. You are ready-made missions and experience points. At the end of the previous version, I wiped them clean. They're not even fully grown yet.